If I could ask everyone to stand for a moment of silence, and then we'll ask Mr. Stone to lead us in the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call the roll.
Mrs. Singer Erdley?
Here.
Mr. Lesby?
Here.
Mrs. Lesby Mitchell?
Here.
Mrs. Tingle Sames? Here. Mr. Showalter?
Here.
Mr. Stone?
Here.
Mrs. Tackett? Here. Mr. Thompson?
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum. Each of you should have a copy of the minutes from our last meeting in your packet. If you'd like to look those over for any possible corrections or additions.
Mayor, I make a motion.
Motion's been made to approve the minutes as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. And with no questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. As is typically the case in our meetings, the first item on our agenda is public comments. But even before we get to public comments, we have a very special guest with us tonight that we had invited to honor for the accomplishment of Georgetown College Tigers winning the NAIA basketball championship. And head coach Chris Briggs is here with us tonight. Coach Briggs was going to be joined by the athletic director from the college, and unfortunately Brian got called away with a last-second family health emergency, so we would have had our athletic director here too. But we've honored the Cardinals championship teams and who have brought honor to our community. And Coach, if you'd like to come forward, we would like to honor you as well. Usually at council meetings, we don't have this big of an audience, but given that we do, I'm glad that we have this many folks here to help us on the Coach Briggs. So if the clerk could read the proclamation, please.
Sure. Proclamation, City of Georgetown. Whereas Georgetown College men's basketball team, under the leadership of Coach Chris Briggs, won its second NAIA Division I men's basketball championship in 7 seasons and third overall since 1998 by defeating number 11 Carroll College 68-48 in Kansas City, Missouri. And whereas Coach Chris Briggs has capped off a 33-4 season where the Tigers won the Mid-South Conference regular season and tournament titles, going 11-3 in one of the toughest conferences in the NAIA. And whereas Georgetown College senior Troy Stewart was joined by juniors L.J. Cowherd and Chris Coffey on the All-Tournament and All-American teams, and whereas Chris Coffey was also named tournament MVP, averaging a double-double while posting 4 double-doubles in 5 games, along with 32 points and 12 rebounds in the semifinals. And whereas L.J. Cowherd tallied a triple-double in the opening round while Troy Stewart was a consistent leader. And whereas Coach Briggs has developed young men of character for their future success beyond basketball, and whereas in recognition of another outstanding season for Coach Chris Briggs, who finishes as NAIA Coach of the Year for the 2nd time and currently has a record of 219-59 in 8 seasons, which makes him deserving of the official recognition acknowledged hereby. Therefore, let it be known that Tom Prather, Mayor of the City of Georgetown, and the Georgetown City Council do hereby recognize Georgetown College basketball coach Chris Briggs and his dedicated staff and the Georgetown College men's basketball team for the 2019 NAIA Division I men's basketball championship. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of Georgetown, Kentucky to be affixed this 13th day of May 2019. Tom Prather.
Second.
Motion's been made, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations.
Good job.
Each of the council also should have received in your council packet a copy of our latest check register. If you could indicate if you received that register. Thank you. A number of people have signed up for public comment, and we want to hear everyone who has signed up, and we will certainly give you that opportunity. What we would ask for your indulgence, since we have so many that would like to speak tonight, to the extent possible, if you could limit your comments to 3 minutes. That way there'll be adequate time for each of your neighbors to talk. And so if it takes you longer, it does. But I'm sorry?
Speak up.
Okay, I'll be glad to. To the extent that you can, if you can limit your comments to 3 minutes, that would be helpful. Also, since so many people are here for the discussion of one particular issue, there are a few in our audience that have other issues, and I thought it would be helpful if we let them go first and clear out of the audience, and then we can spend the majority of public comment time focused on the issue that I think most folks are interested in. So with that, if I could please call up Carrie Williams and Elizabeth Wooten for Wear Orange Day.
Is this on?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. I'm Carrie Williams.
And I'm Betty Wooten,
Betty
most of the
Wooten.
time.
You signed in as Elizabeth. Were you trying to trick me?
Well, I didn't want you to know who I was. You might not let me talk.
First, we want to thank you. Thank you for this opportunity tonight to talk to you about Wearing Orange Day, or it's also known as National Gun Violence Awareness Day. We are members of Moms Demand Action, which is a national group under the umbrella of Everytown, USA. Moms has a Scott County chapter that we started in February, I think. It's small, but hopefully growing. Everytown, USA and Moms Demand Action are concerned about gun violence everywhere, whether it be in the community, if it's a matter of domestic violence, suicide, horrendous. We're also interested in educating about safety and storage of guns in the home. So we have many ideas. What we're here for tonight is to talk to you about school shootings. The student survivors of Parkland, Florida, whom everybody remembers, 17 were killed, equal number wounded. They decided they wanted to bring new energy to Wear Orange Day. They did not originate it, although I thought that they had. Wear Orange Day has been around since, I believe, 2013, January of 2013. And it became a national day after, I think, a 15-year-old girl named Hija Pendleton was shot at a bus stop in Pennsylvania. It was 5 days after she had been in the presidential parade.
Carrie, in the interest of time, is there
Okay,
an
I'm
action
going.
that you want the council to consider, or?
I'll put it in gear. Okay. I'm a little nervous.
I understand.
Okay. So we're here to talk about a national Wear Orange Day, and we would like to have you guys consider June 7th as Wear Orange Day here in Georgetown. We would like for you all to approve it and for the mayor to have a proclamation. After the first school shooting in Columbine, a word I will never forget, we thought something will be done. 13 were killed, 20 wounded. And then in December of 2012, at Sandy Hook Elementary, was the second mass shooting. 20 kindergartner and first graders were killed. 7 adults were killed, 27 in all. The very next day after the Sandy Hook incident, every town began recording incidences of gun violence and deaths, and particularly in schools. I'll just give you one or two statistics. Since they started doing statistics in January of 2013, there have been 447 incidences of gun violence in U.S. schools, including some suicides, and 150 of which were unintentional firings. 178 children have died. 341 have been injured, and that comes to a total of 519. This is in 6 years' time. It doesn't include 2019. Bringing it closer to home, we all remember Marshall County school shooting where 2 were killed, 18 injured.
Carrie, I don't mean to interrupt, but we can read a litany of gun violence issues and be here all night, and it won't advance what we're talking about.
Okay.
Mayor, do you need a motion to make June the 7th?
Wear Orange Day.
Wear Orange Day. I'll make that motion.
I'll say, we'll both second
For the
it.
city of Georgetown.
We'll both second it, so one of us.
Are any questions for Carrie? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. All right.
Well, you got rid of me, didn't you?
But you got what you wanted out here.
It's because he's got it.
Okay.
I don't. Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there any way for somebody else to sign up on that sheet, or is it closed?
Oh, no, certainly.
Okay.
Should I come there?
Or when we're through with all the comment, I'll be glad to see if anyone else in the audience.
You want me to? Okay, I can holler.
You up real time.
Yeah, I know. Otherwise, so many. So many.
What I'm going to do now is, as people have signed up to speak to the issue of the noise ordinance, I'm simply going to call the names in which they signed up to speak. And we'll go through this entire list. Mr. McEwen signed up, but I thought, Kelly, did you say you could wait a while, or? Okay. The next person to sign up on the sheet is Mr. Matt Nunn.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. I am Matt Nunn. I live in Georgetown and own Cilantro Public House with my wife, Ashley. There will be a lot of talk tonight about our pub, both from our neighbors that are against the proposed change and from Georgetown residents and business owners that support it. I want to remind council that this issue isn't solely about the pub. It affects any Georgetown business that plays music outside or may do so in the future. It also affects other businesses that benefit from Scott County residents and residents from surrounding communities that now choose Georgetown for dining and entertainment. Based on my experience at the previous meeting for this ordinance and meetings with planning and zoning, you will also likely hear complaints about parking, people smoking outside, etc. While I would be happy to share the many things we have done to mitigate those issues, they are not germane to this conversation, and nothing you do or don't do tonight will address those matters. Tonight is about what we want and need Georgetown to be for business owners and residents. Georgetown is growing. This ordinance will have an impact on how it grows. It can be a vibrant community that gives our current residents a place to dine and relax while also attracting new residents and tourism revenue. In a recent radio interview, Chris Bentley of Sunday Best called our pub one of the 5 best live music venues in the state. And we've seen the result of that with visitors regularly coming from surrounding communities. We've also heard from numerous people that moved to Georgetown because we have a vibrant dining and entertainment scene. Restaurants and entertainment venues not only improve the quality of life for Georgetown residents, they strengthen our tourism industry and positively impact other small businesses which happen to employ many of our friends and neighbors. They also generate some significant tax revenue and have a positive impact on property values. The realtors in attendance tonight are prepared to speak about that. While I'm talking about tangible impacts, it should be noted that traffic on Main Street is louder than our music, and there are a relatively small number of nights per year when it's warm and dry enough to have music outside. So this change will have a nominal impact. Lexington, which has been named one of the top places to live in the U.S. by numerous publications and is a competitor for the revenue our restaurants and entertainment venues generate, allows music outside until 11 p.m. every night. If we want to continue attracting visitors to our town, we need a reasonable noise ordinance that enables our businesses to compete with their Lexington counterparts. And we believe 11 o'clock on Friday and Saturday night is a reasonable compromise. The outpouring of support we've received from hundreds of Georgetown residents demonstrates we are not alone in that belief. When I read the portion of the noise ordinance in question and see mentions of ice cream trucks and auctions, it is apparent to me it wasn't written for the Georgetown of today and certainly not the Georgetown of tomorrow. Indeed, the noise ordinance was approved in December of 1983 and hasn't been revised since. It's time for a revision that will facilitate responsible growth. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Nunn. Next on the sign-in sheet is Shannon Burns.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council members. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I will be very brief and not take up much time, as I know there are a lot of people here to speak tonight. Georgetown has experienced a 75% growth rate since the year 2000. And if I've read the description of the B3 zoning, I think that it was written in a very forward-thinking way, anticipating this type of growth. I am also a business owner on Main Street. And I think the B3 zoning was written to allow for commercial activity in a concentrated area with an emphasis on large-scale activities. It specifically describes the intent of enabling the public to participate in many activities. For example, department store and specialty stores. Specifically mentions places of amusement and entertainment. And it specifically notes that those activities should be enjoyed without depending on motor activity. So a space downtown, where people can walk and enjoy amusement, entertainment, specialty stores such as mine. It seems to me that permitting an exception to the noise ordinance for weekends and holidays furthers the intent to create a downtown venue concept. And I support that as well. I support the change to the noise ordinance. And that's all I'd like to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Burns. Next on the list is Kathy Mattingly.
I didn't realize I'd be so far up the list. All the orange people left. My name's Kathy Mattingly, and I am a realtor in Scott County, and I've lived here for about 6 years. I can speak to the importance of the pub on what it brings to our community, what it adds to the value of our properties, what it adds to the value of our community. But I wanted to speak specifically about live music. One of my favorite things to do in the summer is to sit outside in the courtyard at the pub, either in a rocking chair or at a table, with a drink or without a drink, with a group of friends or just with my husband, and listen to live music. We've heard some fantastic musicians there. As Matt said, we are considered one of the top music venues in the state. This is Georgetown. This is little Georgetown. And so instead of going to Lexington and having our dinner there so that we can go hear live music afterwards, we do it in Georgetown now. We almost never leave Georgetown now. And I just feel like it's important to support the pub. It's important to support these owners who brought so much to our community and who worked so hard to to do good in our community, whether it's doing philanthropy or whatever it is that they're doing for our community. So I'm speaking in favor of the noise ordinance, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Mattingly. Katie Prather.
Good evening, Mayor and all the council people. Thank you very much. I am a longtime resident, grew up in Georgetown. I'm a business owner, and I am a proponent and an excited person for our downtown area. We are very diversified. We're very much a part of a lively community, which I think is just great. I remember when we used to roll the sidewalks up about 8 o'clock. Now we have some place to go, whether it's going to be the pub, Fava's Restaurant, can't forget that, of course. But we've got so many places that we can go and socialize and be with friends and folks that we want to be with. Georgetown is growing. We've got a lot of good businesses that come here. That's going to bring more people to our downtown area. And I feel like we want that here. We don't want it to go across the county line to give them the money that we should have. Think about maybe the Horsey 100 when they come. What a wonderful town to come to rather than going into Lexington. Come here to Fava's, to Broussard's, the new one. Go to get a gelato, made from cake, all kinds of restaurants and fun places to shop, to be in downtown and be excited about our town. I think that the noise ordinance is a very easy thing for us to consider. I think it's a very exciting thing for all of us to know that we're alive and vibrant. Think about some of the communities around us who struggle to have a vibrant downtown. We aren't. They're envious of us, and I think it's something we need to be very proud of and not, promote the businesses that are here. Don't want any stores, fronts that are vacant. We don't want to see that, and we've just built so much and done such a good job. Keep your money here. The people who are responsible for the businesses, they're very entrepreneurial in spirit, and I think we need to continue that spirit for Georgetown. I'm for the ordinance and feel like we all should be very, very proud of our downtown. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Prather. Next on the list is Karen Taylor.
I am Karen Taylor. I am a resident on Main Street, right straight across from the pub, or at least a little diagonal. And all that they have said, I have to agree with. But let me remind you that all of this has happened without 2 hours being added to the noise ordinance. I think, and I have heard that some of you may have already made up your mind. And if that's the case, let me add one thing. If you do change your noise ordinance, let's add a volume control to it. There is available on everybody's smartphone a decibel meter that can meter the amount of volume that's coming. If indeed that goes into a level that's red, that's too much for the people sitting in the courtyard and for the neighbors. Give that some thought too. If you're going to change it all the way. The other thing, you all haven't read to this group the ordinance as it stands now, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I would like to read a portion of it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Starts out, the purpose of this article is to preserve the public health, safety, and welfare by prohibiting excessive and disturbing noise and to prevent noise which is prolonged or unsuitable for the time and place and detrimental to the peace and good order of the community. It is the goal of this article to allow all residents of our city to peacefully coexist in a manner which is mutually respectful of the interests and rights of others.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Next on the list for public sign-in is Mara Mayberry.
Mayor, council members. I just want to speak briefly. I know that when Slancha first came, it was really exciting, and it was a really nice addition to the downtown. But also what's been alluded to before is how the noise ordinance can affect other things other than the pub. And I know that I've been to some events that were fundraisers that got broken up because of noise ordinances. And that's, that takes away from, the events and participation of the Georgetown residents. And I have to agree that Slancha is one of my favorite places. And it is a great place to bring your friends, and it's just a great place, for family, and it is a great addition to Georgetown. So I just want to say that I fully support the noise ordinance and I think that it's a great compromise to do 11 on Fridays and Saturdays. It allows for events and different things to take place in Georgetown and just make it better. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mayberry. Mabry, sorry. Next is Mr. Dwayne Ellison.
Hello. My name is Samantha Eddington. I wanted to speak on my behalf anyway, but I'm going to speak for Dwayne. He had to step out.
Okay.
So, excuse me. I'm one of the board members of the Finley Foundation. We've used the pub multiple times for events easily. Myself and my family, we like to use it in the summertime more than the winter because we can sit outdoors and it doesn't bother us to speak over, the other people that are sitting there. We don't have to be louder or scream over music or anything like that. Sorry, I've lost my voice. The foundation itself has really benefited from being able to walk down to the pub after the race. They have on 2 separate occasions gotten a permit so that we could allow our children to attend the event afterwards. So I trust my children to go there and be safe in that atmosphere. And I think that speaks volumes that I would allow my children to be there. You go to Lexington, you can't take your children to places like that because it doesn't feel safe. Fights break out, people drink too much. That's never been the case when we've been there. So I would gladly endorse a later noise ordinance. So, thank you.
Thank you. Kelly Burton.
Good evening. My name is Kelly Burton. I've worked with Matt and Ashley at the pub since they opened. I'm the only bartender that's been there since the day they opened. And while I could sit here and testify for the great people that Matt and Ashley are and what they've brought to this community, I really just want to talk to you all about the community that they've created and the Kentucky music scene that they've continued to support with the pub. Throughout the year, any given Friday, Saturday night, you can find a local artist or an artist maybe from a couple hours away, but still a Kentucky artist who brings music to share with the pub and brings followings with them. Those people also then patronize the other businesses downtown. So while supporting the noise ordinance till 11 o'clock, we can continue to support these musicians who also bring people to support the pub and other businesses downtown. I'm in favor of changing the noise ordinance on Fridays and Saturdays to 11 o'clock, and I hope that you all will also.
Thank you, Ms. Burton. Next on the list is Ann Arnold Ratliff.
Thank you so much for allowing me to speak. My name is Ann Arnold Ratliff, and I own Mamie's Fine Wine and Gifts, right a stone's throw away. And I am 100% in favor of the change in the noise ordinance. The heart and soul of a city is dictated by a downtown. And in order to have a thriving downtown, you need the locals to participate, but you also have to have tourism. When you have tourists here on the weekends and on holidays, you have to provide activities for them in the morning and all the way to the night. You have to be different. That absolutely has to come with that territory. And so consequently, you need something to do well into the hours. 11 o'clock is completely acceptable, and so I am 100% in support of the noise ordinance change in order to make Georgetown grow. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Susan Kraft.
Hello, Mayor, City Council members. My name is Susan Kraft, and I live downtown. I actually live on West College, above the creek and above Water Street. And I've had a number of conversations with the mayor of how thrilled I am to see Water Street thrive and to see businesses come in down there. And I partake in local feed, and I've gone down to the bourbon tasting area and the salon that's down there. I have enjoyed my time at the pub. I do have to say I'm in favor of a noise ordinance. I'm not so sure I'm in favor of changing the noise ordinance. I am most grateful where I live that I have green space and I have a block between me and Water Street. I enjoyed sitting out on my porch and listening to Swing Street when they played at Holy Smokers, and I could hear them vividly, a block up the creek. I enjoy the music at the pavilion on the festivals that the city holds down there at night. Would I like to have them playing in the KU parking lot across from my house? I don't think so. I don't think I want them at my neighbor's house across the street, and I don't think I want them at my neighbor's house next door to me. And I think what we're doing here tonight is we're looking at an ordinance that is occurring because we have a business that is bumped up next to a residential home and a residential area. Now, we never expected that, but it's here. And I hope you all don't make a knee-jerk reaction tonight and change something because of one business. Where in town is this going to make a difference? Is it going to make a difference at Cherry Blossom? Is it going to make a difference at Wilshire's? Is it going to make a difference at the little restaurant on Broadway, heading out Cincinnati Pike, where you've got a home? I really wish that we had an ordinance that would take in account a residential area between the business that's going to have the music outside and the residents. I mean, we are butting up against a residential area and a historical area in this community. As a former Board of Adjustments member, I made some hard decisions. We made some decisions that made people unhappy, and we made decisions for people who were happy. The mayor, the pink house across the street from you, next door to your family's home. We made decisions not because you were sitting on the front row, but because those decisions were right. We made the decisions because it was right for our community and it was right for those people in that area. We weren't put on Board of Adjustments to make friends. We didn't elect you because you're up there to make friends. We elected you. The mayor appoints Board of Adjustment members, planning and zoning members, as does the county judge, to make good, wise decisions for our community. I wish we would take some time and effort before you do a knee-jerk reaction and change something for one business to look at the impact of what you're doing across this community. Believe me, I enjoy everything that our community has to offer. I want to see it thrive. I live downtown. Do I want it in my backyard? No. Do I want it in the driveway next to me? No. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Kraft. Next on the list is Jennifer Tackett, I believe.
Hello, thank you all for having me. Now, my name is Jennifer Tackett, and I'm here speaking to you all tonight as a lifelong resident of Scott County, as a music artist, a venue booking agent, and a patron. If you would have told me as a little girl running through the cornfields in Gaines Farm right down this road that my hometown would be a place where I could sing, listen to amazing artists, watch other people come into their own as artists, and see people fall in love with a musician, I would have never believed you. Like many small towns over the last 40 years, Georgetown has grown. We have seen industries bring jobs and money to our local economy. We have seen an increase in diversity that enables us to teach tolerance and love to our children. We have seen our small town become something not so small. Some people say it's not a community, but a community is not just a group of people living in the same place, but is also the feeling of fellowship that others have when they come together. If you don't think we have a community here, look at the amount of people who have come together to help the homeless, help our youth, help a young man who never thought he would walk again, to help a firefighter who almost has lost his life serving our community. There's not a shortage of community here in Scott County and Georgetown. The arts are a big part of our community, and they can nurture positive growth. It has economic, social, and cultural impact. It provides jobs. Young people come to communities with an vibrant arts community. That brings people to fill jobs and brings new families here. It brings out-of-town people to shop at our stores and eat at our restaurants. It increases our sense of community. There is nothing that brings a group of strangers together more than sitting in a room listening to music. Different races, economic backgrounds, genders, ethnicities, it brings us together. We all have the ability to connect with music and it to connect us. It improves our community status and image, and that makes people want to visit and live here. We have music venues that support our community, support local artists, provide jobs, and bring new people to this beautiful town. I've always been proud of where I come from, but I've never been more proud of this community and how it's helped to support the arts. We have venues that help musicians at every stage, from helping them build confidence at open mics, and giving them writers' rounds to share their stories, and also giving them the opportunity to play at their first paying gig. We are building a community of musicians here in Kentucky that rivals a group of any musicians anywhere. It is places like Georgetown that are helping us be seen on a national level as the birthplace of some of music's rising stars. The local person that you see on any given Friday and Saturday night may not be so local anymore. Support them. You'll be glad you did. We have a musical community here that is made up of some of the best people I know. Last year at Slancha House, we had Delaplain and Berglund contacted me to sing at Slancha House. They're from Canada. Bella was just named the Canadian's Female Vocalist of the Year. We had at Country Boy Brewing, Chelsea Nolan's album release party, we were at capacity. There were people from Illinois, Alabama, Kentucky, Tennessee that all came there. Tyler Booth just recently recorded with Brooks and Dunn on their album. He played at Tipsy Cow. Sonora May, Tyler Childers' wife, has sold out My Old Kentucky Phone next week. I'm not a politician. I'm not on any boards. I'm not anyone that has a say on anything. But I will say this. Music and art add value to our community. But why aren't we valuing music and art? I support raising the noise ordinance to 11 o'clock, and I hope that you see the value in arts in our community and what it can do for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Maddox. Next on the list is Mr.
That was Ms. Tackett.
Oh, that was Ms. Tackett. I'm sorry. Melissa Maddox, please.
Thank you all for taking time to hear us tonight. My name's Melissa Maddox. I am not a public speaker. In fact, I'm scared to death. But when I heard about what was going on, I felt that it was important that I come. I'm a business owner right across the street on Main Street. I own Misbehavin'. We've been in business 3 years. My husband and I moved here a few years back from a small neighboring community, mainly because we were always in Georgetown. Every weekend we were coming over here looking for somewhere to eat. It just was a very vibrant, growing community, and we wanted to be a part of it. So we moved. A couple years later, we opened a business. We've now been in business for 3 years. Georgetown's a really exciting place to be. If you haven't been downtown recently during the daytime, especially on a Saturday, you need to come because it's become a destination. There are people coming from several counties away, and we get so many comments about, we can come and stay all day. We can come and have breakfast at Fava's, and then we can shop, and then we can go to lunch at Galvin's, and we really are a destination. With all the hotel industry that we have here, we're having a lot more people that are coming and actually spending the night, coming and staying the weekend. I think it's really important that we keep up with the neighboring communities. I don't think that 11 o'clock on a Friday and Saturday is unreasonable. I'm fully in support of it, and I think that if our downtown especially is going to continue to stay alive, we need to keep up with neighboring communities. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Ms. Maddox. Next on the list is Mr. Charles Hoffman.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. I live at 336 Main Street, which is right next door to the Salante pub. I think we were here, what was it, 2 months ago, 1 month ago, 5 weeks ago, whatever, and had this same discussion. When I go to bed at night, the bandstand is about where the camera is, and I lay my head about where that camera is from the fence at the pub. The pub has not been they have not abided by the 9 o'clock ordinance. So why would I trust that they would abide by the 11 o'clock, which I think is too late. I think if it's extended at all, I think 10 o'clock would be reasonable for the historic district that the pub is located in. It is a very precarious situation that we have when you mix residential with a beer garden. I guess that last time I looked on they've changed the name now. It was a Irish pub, and now it's a beer garden. And I have sat on my front porch, and I remember remember my dad saying, I remember when the people back in the 20s and 30s that it was commonplace to see drunks falling down, walking on the streets or whatever. Well, I'll tell you what I've done. I've sat on my front porch, and I've seen people go and try to get into the wrong car and stumble around, getting under the wheel. And I was told, and Matt, you were there at the planning and zoning meeting here about, what was it, a month ago? Your friend, Matt Sulsky, Mark, yeah, him too. But he informed me that he said if there's a 9 o'clock ordinance, then and they're playing past 9 o'clock, what you need to do is you need to get on the phone and call the police and tell them that they're in violation of the noise ordinance. Well, Frank Wiseman, who was also on there, he said, Mr. Nunn said, you're the owner of the pub? And he said, yes. Are you're aware that there was a 9 o'clock noise ordinance? Yes, he was aware of it. He said, well, if I'm the owner of the pub and I know there's a 9 o'clock noise ordinance, at 9 o'clock, no more music. That's if I'm the owner of the pub. So what I would ask you to do is make a reason, if you want to make a change, make a reasonable change. I'm not here to wish bad luck on the pub, the owners, on our community. I want to coexist with them. And I think 10 o'clock would be a reasonable compromise on Fridays and Saturdays. And let me tell you what, I've said it before, I have heard music. I'm talking to Kelly over there because he refuted it at another meeting. I have heard the music being played from the courtyard of the pub at 406 Bourbon Street, right next to the Georgetown Police Department. And I mean vividly here. So, the talk about being able to direct the speakers and, there's a lot of questions and stuff that need to be answered about noise proofing, about personal property rights. The pub has on several different times has ignored the ordinances that are in place, and I would question whether if the law is changed, if they will adhere to the new ones. I think they like to push the envelope, and that's about what I got about to say. I'd like to answer any questions while I'm standing here, because no one is more impacted than I and my wife, who live right next door. I'm here on behalf of the people. Miss Carr's back there. She's going to speak. Lynn and Lewis Wolf, Sally Hayes, other people that live across the street from the pub, the people that live on Mulberry Street. There's lots of people to be considered. So I've taken up over my 3 minutes, but like I said, there's nobody that's more impacted and has to live with it more than we do. And the fence that they put up between our property, a wooden, what do you call it? Privacy 6-foot privacy fence does little but amplify the music. It amplifies the music. It does not do anything to lessen the impact.
Thank you, Mr. Hoffman. Next on the list is Ann Hoffman.
Well, I'm Ann Hoffman, and this is not something that I would normally do, nor that I like to do. I'm not against the pub, so I don't want anybody to think that I wish them ill or that they go out of business. I only wish that they would follow the law. I find myself in a position of defending my rights as a homeowner, rights that many of you enjoy without debate or question. Because when you go home, you get to sit in privacy on your front porch. Your conversations aren't being overheard by a courtyard of people, or you have to speak over music being played in the courtyard. When the nuns bought the property next to mine, I was informed it was a zone B3. And that they were opening a pub and described it as a quiet establishment where people could join their friends for drink and conversation. This is also on their Facebook page, so you can look it up, and that's what they wrote. However, not long afterwards, open mic night started, and the loud generators on the food trucks began. Not only on the food trucks, but the generators were put many times, many months, in my driveway. I did not give permission for them to be there, but they were placed there. When I told Matt the generators had been in my driveway, he told me that he was unaware of it. Yet, if you read in some of the reporting, Matt and Ashley have walked the streets of Main Street to make sure that the patrons were parking correctly. And they apparently never saw the generators in my driveway. My driveway is routinely blocked by people loading and unloading stuff from the pub and ordering food from the food trucks. And oftentimes they park in my driveway. Their patrons smoke and talk on their cell phones in my driveway. When told they're on private property, you either get a smart aleck response or a rude look. And this I found out not long ago, that my neighbors had witnessed someone urinating in my driveway. So now the pub, once described as a quiet establishment, has morphed into a pub beer garden. They're going to build a 1,250 square foot structure with speakers in the back of the establishment. The pub is completely surrounded by residences. It is in a historic residential district. We ask that you protect the historic district and keep the ordinance as it is.
Thank you, Ms. Hoffman. Next on the list is Jane Bryant.
This will be short and sweet. My name is Jane Bryant. I live at 405 East Main Street, which is across the street and down the street from the pub. When we bought our house 13 or 14 years ago, we thought we were buying a house in a residential and historic neighborhood, only to find out that it is no longer can be considered that. The noise ordinance itself is an issue to us. We sit on the front porch and we can hear the music very plainly. We sit in the deck in the back and we can still hear the music. The upstairs bedrooms in our house, you can still hear the music. So when it is there way past 9 o'clock, we can still hear the music. It's not a pleasant thing if you have to work, if you're employed and you have to get up. You don't really want to hear the music at 9, 10, or 11 o'clock at night. And that's kind of where I'm coming from and where we're coming from. I just would like, I don't have any problems with extending the music to on Friday and Saturday night, but I do have problems with not honoring the 9 o'clock curfew during the week when we're supposed to be working. I like country music. My husband likes classical music, so we don't have the right kind of music coming at all at our house, day and night. But I just wish that we could still maintain the historical and the residential area in which we live. I think it's that's what I'd like to see happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bryant. Next is Sable Snyder.
Hi, my name is Sable Snyder, and I'm a local music educator and a local musician here in Georgetown. I'm not originally from Georgetown. I'm from Somerset, Kentucky, but I came to college at Georgetown College and graduated in 2011 with a degree in music education. My husband and I then moved to Lexington for a couple years, but we decided to move back to Georgetown, even though both of our families are from Somerset, because we love the vibrant downtown community. And we both now live in downtown Georgetown. I think that one of the great things about Georgetown is that it has so many wonderful businesses, and they're all very classy businesses. They're involved in the community. They encourage the community to be a better place, and they support the community. And Slancha is one of those businesses. And Slancha also supports the local music scene, which I'm very, very thankful for as a music educator, a musician, and just someone who supports the arts in general. So I know that change is hard, and when growth happens, change has to happen. And I think that changing the noise ordinance to 11 o'clock on weekends is a good start for our community as we continue to grow, because I know our community is growing. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Snyder. Next is Clay Thomas.
Mayor Prather, council members, Clay Thomas on Brickhouse Properties, real estate. What's nice is being able to market a property that has a thriving downtown. It helps with the grabbing folks' attention, and really it's part of the reason why we have a thriving downtown and such a hustling and bustling growth because of these businesses. So with that being said, I'm just going to leave this very short. I'm in favor of the noise ordinance change. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Peter Kerwin?
Maybe. Mr. Kerwin?
Mr. Kerwin?
Peter, Elevation
There you go.
Oh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is, and council, my name is Ken Kring. I live about 4 blocks east on Main Street of Solanches. I come here to speak in support of Solanches. I know the owners. They're good people. They're good entrepreneurs, without question. I think they're good for this community. And I also know the opposition, and some of those folks are really good friends of mine. And so, you know, I take all of that into account. But what has really gotten my attention with the ownership of Solanches is in discussions I've had where they reach out and they do attempt to make a difference. They talk with the opposition. They try to say what can we do? How can we fix some things here? And that's really impressed me. I honestly, just selfishly believe they're great for the community. And it's just going to make Georgetown an even better place. I mean, we all know how proud we are to live here in this community. And so I would support, you know, a resolution that would, or an ordinance that would change this. And so that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crane. Audrey Carr.
Well, I'll try to make this fit quickly because each of the council members did receive a letter that I hope was thoughtfully written on my part and thoughtfully considered on your part. And in that letter, I acknowledged 2 things that occurred since the last council meeting. And Mayor, I imagine you were part of the instigator behind that. We did get striping on our curbs that had previously not been done, and that has helped those people who tend to be compliant with the law, in that we now have better access and less parking problems. There are still customers who ignore that, and that's going to happen in any place. So that's not at Matt's feet. I'm sure he doesn't encourage people to not comply with the parking. And then the other thing is that when we went to planning and zoning, they were successful in getting approval for their pavilion, it was at that time that the discussion about the noisy generators came up, and one of the planning and zoning commission members did suggest they wire their house or entry or something in order for those food trucks to be able to plug in their generators. So that has been done, and so that noise has been abated. So that was with a lot of relief. I'm asking you to think, this is not about, do people like the pub? Yes, they like the pub, and that's their right. Are the owners good people? Sure, they're good people. I have no reason to think they're not. What is at play here is that we have a too small venue, very limited acreage, that's about to increase with its density of people with the addition of the pavilion. And I think by Matt's own testimony, if I'm incorrect, then I stand to be corrected. There are 60 seats inside, 60 seats in the patio area, and 40 potential additional seats. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So we're increasing the density of population by 30%. That's the way I look at it. Or a third, 33 and third percent. So the increased people teamed with the potential of increasing the length of time that music is played is problematic when you're in the residence right next door. Think about this. All day Sunday, and usually after church, they can have events with live music until 9 o'clock. Or if you ignore the ordinance, beyond, unless someone calls the police. On Saturday, it's the same thing. So it's not like there's not opportunity. It's not about, do you have a shower there during the day, a birthday party? All those things are great things, and they're good for the community. My point to you was that it's been the collective efforts of multiple people. City government took a role in revitalizing the downtown. It's been a multi-year thing. I lived here way before the downtown was suffering. And then I saw it go like this. Empty storefronts, ugly storefronts, empty things along the street. Those things were revived pre-pub. And they're still growing. I'm a patron of the downtown for more than 40 years. I've only lived on Main Street 33. But I lived here 8 years before that on Hiawatha Trail. So I thought the comments that we've heard from some of the people relating to residential bumping up is problematic. You didn't necessarily create that. That's where it is. So my suggestion, since I've had a feeling that some of you were committed to extending it to 11 o'clock, think about a compromise. I heard that planning and zoning. Compromise means both parties. Those for and those against have to come together. If you had an ordinance that ended at 10, then you've got from 7 to 10, 3 hours of music, 2 hours if you do it 8 to 10, however you want to do it. There's nothing prohibit music starting earlier, and all the patrons aren't 19 and 20. I know some of them surely would be willing to come to hear their music. This is not about, do we support the arts? This is not about, should you have music venues? Yes, you should. But in my opinion, they should be where you have large spaces, empty spaces, green spaces around. This is not about, do we like drinking beer? Some of us do, some of us don't. It's not about that. So I've heard you say you want a compromise. I've heard planning and zoning say there ought to be a compromise. I'm not so sure that everybody in the room wants a compromise, but I do think you should think about that.
Thank you, Ms. Carr. Jared Volk.
Good evening. Not sure how this process works, so I'm just going to say hi and get into it. Heard a lot of folks talking.
That's a great way to start. You got 3 minutes.
All right. We're quite fine with
Me
that.
out here, you see? Lose those seconds. I get those seconds back. All right. I could sit here all day and talk about how great of people Matt and Ashley are, how great the business is for the community. I think you've heard plenty about that. I think the point that needs to be made here is economic development, economic growth. I can't say for sure numbers-wise what this whole noise ordinance issue has had on their business. I know on them personally it's taken a toll. Somebody said that they've tried to do the right thing, tried to fix, somebody talked about the generator. They've talked to me about that personally. I know they're very concerned about it. I know they're very worried about it. It's not something that they take lightly. It's not something that any of us take lightly because we're here to support them because they are the people that they are. I think increasing this noise ordinance will continue to help their business grow, help the community grow, help artists that come in grow. I don't think this is the type of business and these are the type of people that we want to push down with policies and ordinance and politics and things like that. I think these are the type of people that we can sort of bring up in the community, and it's a place that the community should be built upon and should grow upon, not something that should be hindered or pushed down or whatever you want to call it. And so what I would just ask that you take that into consideration. I know people have talked about the type of people that they are, but they bring that to their business and they bring that to the community, and it shows. And I'm sorry, I kind of got lost. Anyways, so yeah, please take that into consideration. You've heard plenty about who they are, but just know that they wear that business on their sleeve, and it's a reflection of truly who they are as people. And so that's why, people come up here and talk about them. So thank you for your time. I hope I beat my 3 minutes.
You did well. Thank you, Mr. Pope.
And I'm sure you can guess, but I am in favor of extending the noise ordinance.
Yes, sir. Next on the list is Mr. Brett Halverson.
Cheaters. I am in favor of increasing the time on the noise ordinance. Speaking on a couple different things here. As a realtor, having a vibrant downtown is very important for property values. We're not a small town anymore. It does feel like it. We're the 7th largest city in Kentucky, and we have the fastest growing county in the state of Kentucky. We don't want all the eating, and if we don't do anything about this, all the eating and drinking options are going to be off of 75 in the bypass. Nobody's going to want to come downtown. I mean, we need some stuff downtown. People need a reason to come downtown. If you want to see what happens to property values in other downtown areas with dead downtowns, drive into Paris or Cynthiana. We don't need the downtown to completely dry up, but everything go out to the bypass and out to I-75. As an owner of Georgetown Vacation Rentals, it's an important thing for my guests. They can walk up to the pub or other bars and restaurants and have a drink, some food, and do some shopping. Some of the guests likes going out at night and having drinks and not having to worry about drinking and driving. I have 4 units that cater to the horse park. The typical stays there are 1 to 3 weeks, and it brings a lot of money to downtown, and they love the pub. We want people to come downtown and have a nice, safe place to have fun. We're not talking about a biker bar, a honky-tonk playing music until 2 a.m. every night of the week. The patrons at the pub are mostly members, great members of the community and don't cause problems. We can't I'm not even going to say that. We just need to, don't want to offend. But we just don't want to drive away business from downtown. Mash and Ashley are great members of the community. I'm happy to have them, and I'm happy to have the pub here. Maybe I should have went and had a drink first. I would have been a little less nervous. But the downtown's, it's getting stronger, it's getting better, and we just don't want to get left behind. If we want to have a downtown, we got to have restaurants, we got to have places for people to be entertained and stay out past 9, 10 o'clock. I mean, it just needs to happen. We're growing. And it sucks for some people, and I'm sorry to hear that, but it's just the way it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Halverson. Next on the list, page 4, beginning page 4, Griff Ray.
Hello, Mayor and Council. I appreciate your time. I have a really interesting insight in this because I'm very new to Georgetown. I started working here a year ago, and then we moved here about 6 months ago. But before we moved here, we bought an old house in downtown Lexington in the North Ashland neighborhood area. We renovated, but the reason we moved there was because of the vibrancy that had been brought into a deteriorating neighborhood. That was an awful part of town. But the Walker family brought up some properties. They had some restaurants. They had some breweries. They had some shops come into what was an industrial area and very rough. And it absolutely revitalized that part of the community such that it is a sought-after neighborhood. And so it is a change. Georgetown is in the midst of change. It's growing. And with change come really difficult pains with any kind of change. And so I think maybe the kind of people that will look to live downtown in the future, we looked downtown when we moved here, and there wasn't enough property available for people that enjoyed the shops and the breweries and the things in the evening, and so we built somewhere else. But the money we used to build that house came from a we flipped a house unintentionally in Lexington and brought all of that money right into the Georgetown community. And so I think it may be a different person looking to live downtown in the future of Georgetown, but it will not be less desirable. It will become more desirable, driving up property values, revenue for the county, and all sorts of business. And so from our personal experience, it was a great thing, but not everyone wants that. But Georgetown is in the midst of change, where some of that is going to change. It's not the place it was. I looked at the map in the West Banco from 1930-something, 3,000 people in the county. A lot's changing, and things just don't stay the same. But it doesn't mean they're bad. They can be good changes, even though they may be uncomfortable. So it's been awesome for us being here. We bring friends. Everyone says, people stop going to Lexington, stop going to Lexington. We bring people from Lexington to Georgetown, and 90% of the time it's to go to Cilantro Pub to listen to live music on the evening. So we're in support of it. We think it's good, even though it may be a difficult change we're in the process of. Thank you.
Hey, Griff, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Would you be opposed to saying what profession you're in?
I'm a pastor at Crossroads Church, and that's another thing. Cilantro has let us use their pub dozens of times free of charge, and it's good when people get together and talk about God and how to love each other better, even if it's over a beer. So it's a good thing.
And I will say, Griff is pretty involved with a lot of different community events and trying to help a lot of different charities. So I appreciate you coming here.
Thank you.
Mayor, I wonder where all these folks were when we were passing the original alcohol ordinance. And Karen, you recall that? I mean, it was the opposite of this. And
interesting.
It is interesting.
Yeah. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Gary. Next on the sign-in sheet is Mary Lee White.
Hi, I'm just a citizen without a business or anything, but I've been in Georgetown for 23 years, and my husband and I always took our entertainment dollars to Lexington until we started getting these changes downtown. And now when we go to Lexington, we tell all of our friends, please come to Georgetown and see what's going on here. Come to our little pub. It is such a wonderful place. The life, the culture with the music, all those things. We're talking about retirement, and we were thinking we were going to leave Georgetown. I said, I don't want to leave Georgetown. There's life here now. And this is it's just a wonderful place to live, but that change has come. You know, you've got the bypass with all the chains and the Walmarts and the Applebee's, but it's your personality of your community comes through your downtown. And that's what I see emerging in such a really strong way in this community, and I love being a part of it. I completely support the change in the ordinance of letting the music go on to 11 o'clock, because it is such a wonderful thing to have this vibrant nightlife. It is a nightlife in our community that we love, and we love bringing our dollars back here instead of taking them to Lexington. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. White. Next on the list is Ronnie Fulton. He left? Okay. Then as a late sign-in, Tammy, the lady that signed in late. Yes, ma'am. Please. I'm sorry. It's okay.
Nobody can read my writing.
My name is Jackie Evans, and I live directly across the pub. And I would like to clear a couple things up. First of all, it's unfortunate for the nuns. They bought a house smack dab in the middle of a very dense residential area. Can't get around it. That's the way it is. Many people live around them. They don't live further down on East Main or West Main. They don't live downtown. They live in a residential area. They've had to deal with it, and we've had to deal with them. It's not been pleasant for anybody. I realize all these people love the pub. That's great. But they don't have to live next to it. They don't have to live with it every day. And increasing the noise factor, well, that's just one more thing to add to the residents to make it more difficult for us. I know the nuns think that will help them. I don't see how, but they think it will. But you're putting that much more burden on us. We're a pretty big tax base for you. East Main Street pays a lot of taxes. And you're adding a burden. And I know one other thing, not one person that was pro for this increased noise level, or excuse me, time. None of you live anywhere near the pub. Not one of you. You know, what do you care? You don't have to live by it. You can say all day long it's great. Well, sure, it's great. Maybe we ought to move them into your neighborhood and see how you like it. We've been there long before the pub, and I feel sorry for them in many respects. And I don't want to see them go out of business, but something's got to give. And Mayor, I will soon be coming on knocking on your door about parking. I can't even park in front of my house anymore, and it's the only place I have to park. So get ready. I'm coming.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. Evans.
Thank you.
That concludes, oh, Kelly?
Mayor, thank you for having all of us tonight. Council members, it's nice to be in council chambers. A little brighter than I recall. I don't know how recent the paint job was, but it's nice and bright in here. I live at 409 East Main Street. I am 3 houses down from the pub across the street. And this is a tough issue because this is my neighborhood. These are my neighbors. We don't all agree about everything. Sometimes we don't agree about much at all. But we've heard great comments tonight and input and passion. The things that I do know from my experience, and we've been downtown 6 years now, my wife and I, and she's in real estate. So we know what the value of the properties downtown, citywide, countywide are like, and how the growth has affected. And how we've seen over the last 20 years, like Ms. Carr said, where there was a time when we had lots of empty storefronts, and now we have a really vibrant downtown. I can't tell you the number of times in the past 6 years I've told friends, and when I was teaching in Fayette County, my colleagues, how when I drive home for the weekend and be downtown, if I didn't leave downtown, it may as well have been like 1985, Georgetown. Because I can walk places. If I get in my car and drive out to the bypass or head toward Wednesdays, I run into traffic. Yeah, we have traffic, but it's not like it used to be because we have the bypass, the infrastructure necessary. But I can spend the weekend downtown near my house, walk the dog, walk the local feed, grab milk at Save-A-Lot. I can get Thai food. I can get the best steak in 30 miles. There's just a lot happening, and this is not about the nuns or the Hoffmans, who unfortunately live right next door. But one of our favorite terms in real estate, Mr. Lusby, as you've mentioned many, many times, is caveat emptor and buyer beware. You know, we really were torn whether we wanted to live on acreage somewhere far from town or be right in the middle of it. And ultimately, my wife and I decided we wanted to be right in the middle of it. And with that, we knew that there would be parades and 5Ks, police cars, fire trucks, ambulance runs, 24/7. The noise ordinance is not just about music. It's not just about live entertainment. It's about all noise. But specifically, what we're coming to tonight is about that we have an issue. We have longtime residents of Georgetown who know the community, who have known the community, who in the last 4 years have moved, purchased property next to a business district. The pub has located there next to them, and I feel for them because they're right next to it. But the pub itself is part of what our vibrant downtown brings and draws people. Because it is my neighborhood, I yell at speeders, and I get gestures from them. But I also give directions to people that stop on Main Street who can't find the high school or can't find local feed. In the last 2 weeks, I've met people from Illinois and Tennessee and Wisconsin who, after they'd either been at downtown for dinner or at the pub, are taking a stroll around Georgetown College or to see the rest of Main Street because they love our charming town and the offerings that we have. And I'm really happy tonight to hear that my neighbors are interested in a compromise. I think that Friday and Saturday night at 11 o'clock is reasonable to extend this. You all are welcome anytime to stand on my front porch. Like I said, I don't live right next door like the Hoffmans or 2 doors down like the Cars. I live 3 doors down across the street. But if you stand in my front yard and one car drives by, you cannot hear the music. And if it's a truck who's modified its diesel engine, we can't talk to each other when that truck passes. So there's a significant amount of noise on Main Street. And we moved downtown knowing that. When the pubs announced, when the nuns had purchased the property and announced they were going to open a pub, and they were allowed to because even though we had limited when I was on council the alcohol sales, the state, of course, changed its laws. So pubs were then allowed. That's not a decision that the city made. That was made at the state level. So it's available. But I had a neighbor bring me the article in the paper and said, what are we going to do about the parking? And my initial response is, we're not going to do anything about it because I purchased a house on Main Street on a state road, and they can park all the way down to Shell Station because I don't own that street. But the property I purchased, we have a driveway. We can park out back. But some of my neighbors don't have that. Some have parking and some don't. That's a consideration. So I'm sure Jackie will see you soon because she doesn't have parking. Mr. Dogood across the street, immediately across the street, he also doesn't have parking. But that came with that property, just like when we moved to Main Street. The fire trucks, the ambulances, the parades, the 5Ks, all of that comes with being a Main Street resident, and that's our neighborhood, and we accept it. I don't want to be bullied by a neighbor who doesn't like that or doesn't want that, because there are plenty of other neighborhoods where that doesn't happen. But we also live in pretty well-built homes downtown. Many of them are brick. Sorry to use the term, we don't live in a vinyl neighborhood where the houses are of a different quality because they were built within the last 30 or 40 years. But the houses built in the 1870s and 1880s and 100 years ago are well insulated, in my opinion. So far, my neighbors, even Jane, has not complained about my drum set or my guitar amp because the sound, maybe it doesn't come through our walls so well. So, you know, and when I get to play guitar for the Finley 5K, that's fun, but it's not after 9 o'clock. So you all have a tough decision, but the decisions I made on council were always to try to keep in mind what was best for the community as a whole. And there are some unfortunate situations with the immediately adjacent neighbors. But last point I want to make is the fact that we brought up compromise. And like I said, I'm glad the neighbors have brought up compromise. But over the last 6 months, I think Matt and Ashley have made a tremendous amount of compromise. Their initial idea was a smoker, and they gave that up to consider the pavilion. The smoker, I grew up in western Kentucky where real wood is used for about 12 hours. It creates a lot of smoke. But anyway, this is a noise ordinance, not just a music ordinance or a pub ordinance. But I appreciate your all's time and hope you make the best decision.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. McKeon. That is everyone who had signed up for public comment. Is there anyone else in the audience that would... Steve, I've got you for after this issue is over. You signed up for noise and vegetation. So I'll be coming back to you as soon as we finish this issue.
Well, Mayor Fraser, noise, we're talking about noise. If I may address this issue, I'd like to.
Steve, we've got enough comment about a noise ordinance for a commercial district. I'll come back to you as soon as we're through with this.
Well, I'd like for everyone that's here regarding this pub issue to hear what I have to say.
Steve, you may have 3 minutes at the podium, please.
My name's Stephen Price. I live at 167 Rucker Avenue near Garth Elementary School. I've heard the word tonight, destination. I've heard the word entrepreneur. What is an entrepreneur? An entrepreneur is somebody who he takes. It's French for take, prendre. A preneur is somebody who takes. An entrepreneur is somebody who takes between from one point to another. And what is a destination? A destination is a point to which one goes. This entire pub, music, entertainment, dining culture operates under a banner that the town of Georgetown had on its lamppost for until recently. Shop, dine, play. If you, Mr. Nunn, and anyone else who enjoys night entertainment, I urge you to join me in actually not taking from entrepreneurs and not looking for destinations, but to produce where you live what you consume.
Steve, I'd stop. This has nothing to do with the conversation at hand.
It does, because
Steve,
if you
you're out
say,
of order. Steve, you're out of order. We've got important community business to do, and you're not helping. Would you sit, please?
I don't want to help a nightclub town. I have no interest in being part of a nightclub town. That's what I'm here to say.
Order, leave, or sit down and be quiet.
Sit down.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Mr. Corcoran?
Mayor, Council, good evening. I'm Bill Corkins. I live on Rucker Avenue. And what I heard tonight was interesting, because I just want to quickly share. 27 years ago, I became a part of this community. Bought into a business that was here and ran that business, and this town was dead. People left this town to go into Lexington for everything they wanted. And just last couple weeks, my wife and I were walking downtown, and it's a beauty to behold. To see all the businesses that are there, to see what is happening. I'm not here for or against what this evening is about. I am here for Georgetown. I feel like this is my town. And I thank you so much for it. I don't want to go back 50 years or 20 years. I want us to grow from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Corcoran. Given the amount of public comment that has been heard tonight and the interest that the crowd obviously has in this issue, we've got a number of other agenda items that would normally take place before we get to actual consideration of the ordinance. But it doesn't make any sense to me to ask the audience to sit through a budget presentation and other issues that are going to take a long time for us to talk about when they have an interest in the issue that's currently before us. So with that understanding, with the council's permission, I would alter the order of the agenda just slightly to where on the heels of the public comment, council can have questions or comments if they wish to, and then we can go ahead and proceed with item 9B, which is second reading of an amendment to the noise ordinance. So that way, I just think it's more fair to the public who's gathered with this issue at interest.
I know this is a difficult situation and issue, so I'll go first.
course, everybody knows I'm Connie Tackett, and I am a realtor and a property manager, but I also have lived here all of my life. I grew up on 312 South Hamilton, and I've lived through where our downtown had closed stores and stuff, but I also remember as a child being able to walk downtown when I was 5 years old to the Five and Dime and to the Western Auto when we were really vibrant. And I've seen it go the other way. So I'm not making a knee-jerk reaction. I did absolutely go down to the pub Friday night, which I've not ever been there. Well, I did go to an event one time, but I went down Friday night to visit it, to see what was going on, to see the food trucks and all of that. And it was very quaint. But one of the things, besides really liking it, I thought it was really done very well and the food truck was quiet. I walked downtown toward Kentucky Foam and Fava's and Broussard's, and I turned around and looked and I thought, oh my, look at all of this downtown now, where it used to not be at all. And Kentucky Foam had a thriving business. The pub wasn't loud. They had music upstairs in the room. They didn't have music outside. I didn't hear the music outside while I was outside. I think that if the nuns can be appropriate about, you know, the 9 o'clock on shutting down Sunday through Thursday, that Friday and Saturday, I know it's just going to get hopping at 10 o'clock, probably 9:30. They're just getting going. And I don't think it's unreasonable to have 11 o'clock on a Friday and Saturday and it's a weekend night. But I do think that should be honored that the 9 o'clock through the week, that, you know, you should take it up on yourself to shut it down. And at 11 o'clock on Friday and Saturday, that is also taken into consideration and it's done at 11 o'clock and not anything after that. So I'm grateful for Georgetown being vibrant. I'm grateful that we have the revenue and we have a busy downtown. We have a very unique downtown, and I'm very proud of it, and I'm glad that it's doing what it's doing. So I just wanted to let you know that I am supportive of the 11 o'clock on Friday and Saturday. And I know it's a tough subject, and I went to school with Charlie Hoffman, and I like him very much, and I just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Connie. Just so we have some parliamentary procedure to follow. No.
Okay.
Do you want to make that in the form of a motion?
Yes, Mayor, I will make a motion that we do the ordinance the way that it's written for Friday and Saturday night at 11 o'clock.
I'll second.
Now we can proceed with that discussion.
Okay.
Well, in a more parliamentary correct way.
Thank you.
You know, Mayor, we've always said that growth is great, but sometimes it's hard to manage the right growth. And we do the best that we can to control what's going on in the community. But the pub is in a district that's allowed, even though it backs right up against Charlie. He's not breaking the law. But I would like for you to consider the time, like Connie said. It's very important if this ordinance passed that you shut it down at those hours. Because I'll guarantee you'll have the law over there. I'll guarantee you that. But if you make certain that you shut that down, and you know, that's a compromise. And make certain that it's closed, not closed, but the music is shut down at those times.
You know, one of the things, Mayor, that I've heard is that from people that I've talked to, the music's not loud, that the traffic is louder. Okay, one very easy, David and I talked about it, was an easy solution. Install a decibel meter that constantly is recording decibels. If it's above that, you know, hey, write it down, okay? You know, and that way you're being, and that's something that we could put in any situation where there is a business that could have outdoor music that is butted up next to a residential area. It's the easy solution. Put a decibel meter in. If it's too loud, hey, we need to tone it down a little bit. That's a quick fix. But the one thing that I found most troubling with this is that it had to come here. If the residents, you know, if you got a problem, go sit down with somebody. You know, people talk about, oh, and I've heard it 2 or 3 times, Little Georgetown. You know what? Little Georgetown people would go talk to each other. And not, well, I'm going to call the police. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go. Go talk to somebody. That's a simple solution. You know, go sit down with them and say, hey, what can we do? How can both sides give a little bit and take a little bit?
Can I make a comment? I know that I'm out of line, but for 2.5 years, we did nothing. They continually broke the noise ordinance.
Okay.
We
Did you contact the police department?
No, not for 2.5 years.
Why?
Only after we were told, when they broke the law, call the police. We didn't call the police on them.
Okay.
They never followed the law,
But why wouldn't you?
and we talked to them.
Okay.
So, I mean, you're saying that we never talked to each other, you're assuming a lot of stuff that you don't know about.
You're absolutely right. I don't know.
So you
But
shouldn't say
but what I'm saying is though,
Now, Tim,
that should have been the first. Then go. If you had a problem with them
but they
with the
never
noise,
called them.
contact the police department. I was a police officer for 22 years. I
and then
answered
you
I
called the
answered
police.
a lot of
When
calls.
you call the police, our neighbors are calling the police on us.
Okay.
And now
I'm-
you're the demon.
I've
You're
answered a
demoning us
bunch
in the
of
neighborhood.
calls over the 22 years like that. I understand completely.
If I could get control, if I could get control of the
Quickly,
meeting.
and I'm gonna leave. I know that some members of the city council have had financial dealings with the pub and should recuse themselves from the vote. They've either been to fundraisers, had fundraisers, sold stuff through the pub, and they need to recuse themselves. And that's all I have to say.
Well, I can say publicly, I've never been in the pub.
No,
I
but
haven't
they
either.
had a fundraiser for your wife's organization, not for a lone pregnancy.
If we could get control of the meeting, please, it'd be really helpful. The only comment that I don't think has been fully brought forward tonight that I think is the thing that I think we have to pay attention to is this particular ordinance under consideration. It is not solely focused on East Main Street and this pub. This issue affects our entire community. This issue affects Country Boy Brewing. If there is a noise complaint tonight from anyone about live music at Country Boy Brewing at 9 o'clock, our police department will respond and they will make them stop playing music. The same is true at every other venue. It is true for local feed. It is true for Gallman's if they do anything with the garage doors open and they make too much noise. This is not a situation that is solely focused on one building and one neighborhood. This is an issue that affects businesses all over Georgetown. And I just want to make sure we keep a broader perspective than simply focusing on one area where there's a conflict. We want an ordinance that is fair to all of the businesses and to the residents so they know what to expect. And then we do expect, depending on how this ordinance goes, I think we should have a high expectation that business owners honor those ordinances and they self-enforce. Because we absolutely will do it for you, but we do it clumsy. And we do it in a way that don't make your patrons happy or make anybody happy. So we have presided over immense change in Georgetown and Scott County, and we talk frequently about growing up.
I would like to say that was actually a point I'd want to bring up too. It's so easy to focus on one location, but it affects the whole city. And I live downtown. I live on West Main, and I'm 2 houses off of Main Street. And I'm noise sensitive. I am. I consider myself that way when I hear sirens and everything. But when I bought my house on Kelly Avenue, 2 houses away from West Main, that's kind of what I that's what I bought into, you know, and I love being downtown. I love walking downtown. But, you know, I mean, that's just kind of the ball of wax that I bought, was hearing sirens and everything. And just another point I'd want to bring up, because I had done some research as well. The people that go to the pub are professionals, mostly in their late 30s and up. And I was just kind of interviewing some people there, trying to get a feel for it. And a lot of them have moved here from other places where they didn't know anybody. They were new to town, and they loved the fact that the downtown was blossoming. And like Connie, you know, I remember when it wasn't. And, you know, and that was not even that long ago.
Right.
And, you know, if people are going to move here, they want a place to go, and they want a place to meet people. And it's not like it's 20-somethings or teenagers throwing up on the side of the street. You know, I mean, everyone I met there was a professional. And I think, you know, the way that the business has been set up, it's to that clientele. And I think, you know, that's just kind of my thought on it. So.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I could make a couple of comments.
Yes, ma'am.
I was hoping tonight, actually, to be honest with you, that the council would come up with a compromise between the neighborhood and the neighbors, and a compromise between the business. Actually, everything that's been said about your business is right. It's a positive business. It's been good for downtown. I've been down there several times, and actually it's always friends that come out of town that take me down there and go down there. They want to go down there and be a part of it. But you still have the residents to consider, and even as you look at a broader picture on it, if the council remembers the night that we gave the Tipsy Cow special permission to have their concert, and to have their concert later into the night, I live in Rocky Creek. I could hear from where the Tipsy Cow's located all the way into Rocky Creek until that concert was over. So noise travels, and this ordinance is not just, as the mayor said, it's not just about the pub and the relationship there. It's also about any other venue in town and how it will travel. So now the Tipsy Cow wants to do that again. They don't have to come for us for special permission. They can do what they want to do if they get it okayed with the parking lot that's there, and that sound travels. I think they had a little bit different clientele than what you may have had at your nights that was there. The music was probably a little different than what you're accustomed to having at your clientele or your place of business. But the other thing, if a biker bar, somebody mentioned something about a biker bar. If a biker bar does come to Georgetown, it's a little bit different than the pub, I do believe, but it falls under the same ordinance and the same thing. So I would like to have seen us do either a sunset clause to take it this summer, see how it works with these hours, or to come back and do a compromise on the time. Maybe 10:30 instead of 11 o'clock, maybe take it on Friday to 10 o'clock, on Saturday to 11 o'clock, just something to try it, to work with the neighbors to see how that adjusts to that time period. And then if it all worked well, we go further, or if it didn't work well, we come back and start again. So if we're going straight as the ordinance is, I'm going to vote no on the ordinance because I really think it needed to be a compromise. But I still think all the positive things that have been said about your business are positive, and your business has been positive for the community. And I am a strong supporter of business, and that's why it's hurting me to not vote on this if it goes just like this. But I really think we needed to look at a compromise or try a sunset clause on it and let the summer go all the way through Memorial Day, Labor Day, all that, and just see. Maybe then the neighbors might even come back and have a different outlook on how it was handled. Because some of the questions has been in how you will handle it to make sure that you will honor what you need to honor, and I think you will. But then that way it can come back to the council and be an update to the council on how it all went and what it did. But that's kind of my concern and my thing. So.
Thank you. David, we talked about your suggestion of a device that measures decibels. And one of the speakers is right. They're on your phone. They're easy to get, but more sensitive ones are available too. While it would be difficult to manage this ordinance under decibels, I do think that if the council makes this change, we should acquire one of those devices and we should start tracking noise levels to see what they are. And then at the end of the 6-month period or something, we'll have a better feel for what the data actually illustrates. So I'm not opposed to that concept at all, and it may be helpful for us in the evaluation that some council members have talked about.
Actually, one of the things you should, if you're seriously considering going that way, actually it should be written in the ordinance that it not to proceed such and such decimal. Of course, I don't know what that decimal point would be. But one of the houses that was, because this is so geared towards the neighborhood, is to put one on Mr. Hoffman's house, to put one directly across the street, and then measure a couple places on down the street just to actually see what the noise is. But it's not just fair for the pub. That would need to go other places in town to measure the noise as well. But if you're going to do that, it really needs to be put into an ordinance and then revisited at the X amount of time.
Actually, the idea with the device is we could use it it's a portable device. You could use it in a lot of places if people had complaints. Even if people had complaints about something local feed did, we could use that same device. Devin and I have talked about it. Having that decibel level in the ordinance is an administrative nightmare and not one we're willing to consider at this time.
Then the decimal, how do you actually use the decimal then? How do you make the judgment on what is or what
We'll
isn't?
be able to track performance going forward, but it is not a part of this ordinance. And you've already said you're going to vote no, but it's not a part of this ordinance.
It should be, because then you've got.
We will
then you've
use
got
it going
actual
forward, but
measurement.
it's not a part of this ordinance. Any other questions or comments from the council?
I would like to say that this has been a very, very difficult matter for me. I've considered it from every angle, and I've changed my mind 6, 8, 10 times. I have the greatest respect for Charlie Hoffman and Audrey Carr and the people on Main Street. I've lived here all my life. I don't go to the pub, but my daughter got married last weekend, and the people from Wisconsin were probably the ones that were down at the pub. It was so nice that they had somewhere to go in Georgetown and didn't have to go to Lexington. I've read this. I've tried to think of it as it's not just the pub, it's all of downtown Georgetown. And I have to say that I've come to the conclusion that it is reasonable, in my opinion. It's reasonable for 11 o'clock on Friday and Saturday night. What I don't like about it is I believe that you really have some work to do to gain the confidence of your neighbors, because they're saying that you're not abiding by what we currently have in place, and that concerns me. And so, I'm going to want to see not just you, but anyone that operates a business like this, that they take it upon themselves, that you don't have to call and complain, that you don't have, it's not on the people that live around you. It's your responsibility to follow the law. And so I will say that I'm going to vote yes for this, but I have struggled and struggled with the decision. And I want to see, going out on a limb like this, I want to see you comply with the law.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second.
Mayor, I would like to make a comment.
Yeah, I got to read it.
It's, this has been an interesting issue, and it's interesting. I made the comment earlier about, when we have to first draft the alcohol ordinance and how the environment in here was so different, and now the change. And, we also talked about, Connie mentioned the downtown Georgetown, and wasn't that long ago, was not as healthy as we wanted it to be. Many businesses have left, and I know Ms. Carr, in the letter that she sent to all of us, she referenced a lot of the things, everything from the library to the pharmacies to some of the stores, the retail, just different things had left. And this city government, as well as county government, as well as business owners, made a concerted effort to try to improve downtown Georgetown. And right now, we're seeing some of those successes, and they're paying off. And the pub in this situation is a bit of a victim of success, it seems like, to me. I don't think I've had a drink there. I've been in the pub, and after this, I'm going to go. I'm going to go try it and see what it's like, and I might need to go there sooner than later.
If we get out of here.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I'll wrap it up, Mayor.
Oh,
Okay.
soon.
No, I'm just,
My thought on the decibel device, I thought maybe that would be that compromise that could specifically help this situation. This is a unique situation. This is a business that obviously abuts a residential area. The other areas that we talked about, like Country Boy, they're in the middle of an industrial park, and they're surrounded by other industrial users. I'm not as concerned about that. The UCO Inn, I know we've had some issues there, but again, there's not a residential home just right there on the outskirts of the property. But this was a bit unique to me, and that's where I think I'm still struggling. I still have a bit of concern, and that's why I thought, well, maybe if there was some kind of an addition to the ordinance that said, hey, if you abut a residential area, that you have a little more stringent criteria. And I was doing this, Matt and I've talked. We talked yesterday and we've talked today, and I'm trying to figure out ways to try to help this whole situation. And I know, Mayor, you and your staff here at City Hall have been doing the same thing. I think we all have on council. Heck, I've talked to most of you, and it's all been in a very positive, constructive way. How can we help the community? Anyway, the challenge that I have had has been specifically with the residents that are just right there next to the pub. And I'm willing to do some things. I'm willing to extend the hour to 10 o'clock or maybe 10:30, and I'm willing to try to monitor the noise level with a device and see how that goes. But if that's not the way the council wants to go right now, that's perfectly fine, and I totally respect the decision that's about to be made. In my mind, somebody could be down at the pub playing a guitar and singing John Denver music, and that might not be heard next door at the Hoffman's house or anyone else's house. And to me, that seemed reasonable. I'm like, well, they should be able to do that. But without some element in this ordinance that addresses the noise level, that's just where I was a bit hung up. And I think probably the right thing's going to happen tonight. I appreciate how everybody has been, very respectful, and we've had some excellent input from folks. It's been very impressive. And anyway, I wish you the best. But
Can I suggest
Let's vote.
that there's a lot been said here tonight. I want you all to think about it, what's been said, and possibly meet amongst yourselves to see if you come up with any conclusion that is a compromise that will at least satisfy both parties to some level.
well, there's
Instead of trying to do it all in one night.
Yeah.
There's been a lot said.
This has been going on for a bit of time. It really has, and it probably does need to be wrapped up. But I'll say on anyone's behalf that supports it tonight that if there are issues, if the shut-off time isn't taken care of the way that it needs to be taken care of, just like the mayor said, this body will make other changes. I mean, that issue will be addressed one way or the other. I feel very confident of that.
Do too.
Mayor, I would like to do one thing. Yeah, I did not mean, and I apologize if it sounded like to single anyone out by any means. When I did not mean to get in the exchange with Ms. Hoffman. I have a lot of respect for Charlie and for his wife. Did not mean for that to happen, but, and when I mentioned the residents, I was encompassing all the residents down there, not just trying to single out the Hoffman, so I do apologize for that.
yes, sir. Thank you. Shall we call the roll?
I better read it first.
Oh, well,
Need
you
to
read
read
it
it.
first. Yes,
Need
you may
to
read
read
it.
it, yeah.
One might read it first.
An ordinance amending Georgetown Code of Ordinances, Chapter 9, Article 2 regarding noise nuisances. Summary 1. Amends Georgetown Code of Ordinance, Chapter 9, Article 2, Section 9-23 to provide exemptions for events held on government-owned property and non-residential districts from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. on Fridays, Saturdays, and holidays. 2. Provides for an effective date upon passage and publication. The full text of this ordinance is available for examination in the City Clerk's Office, 100 North Court Street, Georgetown, Kentucky, 40324. Publicly introduced and read for the first time March 25th, 2019. Publicly read the second time May 13th, 2019.
Thank you. And that motion was made by Ms. Tackett and seconded by Ms. Early.
Mrs. Singer Erdley.
Yes.
Mr. Lesby.
No.
Mrs. Lesby Mitchell.
Yes.
Mrs. Tingle Sames.
No.
Mr. Showalter.
Yes.
Mr. Stone.
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Thank you. That ordinance passes. And given the fact we spent 2 hours on
Take a
that
break.
particular agenda item, we might take a 5 to 10 minute break and then reconvene for a budget presentation that you'll be able to concentrate on.
Hold on, Timmy, you too. Let's see, anybody want crackers?
Okay,
There's one stray. We just
we'll call the meeting back to order. Thank you all very much.
Nobody here?
It's hard to imagine as I look through the agenda and I'm only down to mayor's comments.
That's what we thought.
So
We thought you skipped them.
let me march through just a couple of mayor's comments and then we'll go right into the budget presentation. First off, Eddie has been working on a street paving list, and he and I have been reviewing that list. But it's a great opportunity for you all are in places where we're not every day maybe, and if you see a street that needs some attention, if you get a hold of me or Eddie, we can put that on the paving list, and would be glad to do that. We will, very glad that we will open bids for East Main Street Extended on the 17th.
Right, right.
So, just
Hope he comes in.
so happy we're at that point. We will, just to remind everybody, we've called a special council meeting on Tuesday morning, May 22nd at 8 o'clock. Pardon?
Wednesday morning.
Wednesday morning.
Wednesday.
All right, just let me confuse everybody.
Well,
At
This will be Wednesday,
At 8?
the 22nd.
Right.
At 8 o'clock.
Yep.
Gosh, I was getting ready to say, I'm.
We're trying to keep that agenda, as we always do for special called meetings, very small.
Yeah.
And what we intend to do there is first reading of the budget ordinance, which does not require your vote. And it will give you a couple of weeks to review what we present tonight. The other thing we'll do is go ahead and award that road construction contract, so we don't wait from the 22nd all the way till the first week of June and lose that much construction time on the new road.
Right.
So, also wanted you to know that we had a very productive meeting of the interlocal committee. I'd like to thank David for attending that with me, and Marvin has agreed to serve on that committee going forward. It was a good time to sit with the county judge and 3 magistrates to talk about a handful of new interlocals that we're working on. We were updating ourselves on our new MS4 permit that we're doing with stormwater together with the county. We had some real detailed conversations about how we might work together on IT services in the future. We think it makes sense to aggregate some of that need and maybe get some economies of scale. What's difficult right now is we're in a very different position with our network than the county is. We've been working on ours for a number of years, and we've made a lot of strides in terms of the status of our network. So we'd like to work with the county and think that we can, but we have to honor the fact that we have very different current circumstances. Let's see, Andrew, at that meeting, we also touched on,
We talked about building and electrical.
oh, yeah, we talked at length about our desire to align building inspection, code enforcement, and electrical inspection under one government entity. All 3 of those departments are housed down on Clinton Street, and we think that it can be better managed if they all report to either city or county. So we told that group that they could either give us electrical inspection or we would give them code enforcement and building inspection. To which they said, no, we'll be glad for you to take electrical.
Oh, man.
So, pardon?
Cemeteries?
We also talked with them about cemetery. You know, we take care of Georgetown Cemetery through an interlocal agreement. We also made them aware that we also have a responsibility for the old Georgetown Cemetery out of North Hamilton, and that if we can work out an acceptable transaction for Maple Grove,
Right.
we would probably want to fold that into the interlocal as well.
Wow.
So they seemed receptive to that. The other seed that I planted for them, it was too soon to take action, but I'm going to get the data to them. We began a conversation about funding interlocal agreements in a slightly different way than we do them today. Right now, we're funding interlocal agreements just straight 50/50 in almost every case, unless it's a revenue commission or code enforcement. But we at least floated the idea of looking at our tax base as defined by wages subject to payroll tax. What portion of that tax base resides in the city, and proportionally, what portion is in the county. And it's just a thought starter on how we may fund interlocals in the future. What I think that arrangement would do, from the way we've looked back about 10 years about how that slight difference would be, and it would in most years make the interlocal funding around 53-47, 54-46. It's not a huge change, but it's a 3 or 4% swing from one side to the other. And I think it's accurate because it truly reflects the size of our governments via our tax base and keeps our agreements on a fully equal footing.
Mayor, do you need anybody else to sit on interlocals?
What I did, Todd, and the answer is that's a really important committee because you hate to walk in without a full complement of council members. So by email, I'll let the council know that as necessary, I will appoint proxies to be able to do that.
Mayor,
If Marvin's not available.
if you would like to take me off that committee, because when it meets like that, I've not been able to come, and officially replace one of the other council members, and then I would come on the times that I could if you'd like to do that.
That'd be a deal. That'd be good. In fact, the interlocal committee has been unchanged for over 4 years, and it was an oversight on my part that I didn't change it at the beginning of the administration. So Polly had already contacted me, and she was ready to step away from it, and Marvin took that spot. So if you'd like to do that, I'd be
That's
glad
fine,
to do
and then I just contact them when they are, and then if I can come, I will.
that. You can be a proxy. Sure.
So am I still on that or not?
Yes,
Okay.
if that's what you
I
wish
was
to
on
do.
vacation.
Now, well, I said
You're on vacation,
Monday,
you're
Tuesday
off.
was an off day for me, but Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, early morning, sometimes it's great.
No, I'm
And-
glad to still be on it.
Sometimes semi-retired.
I'll be glad to sit in on those.
I appreciate that. Consider yourself appointed.
You're not sitting, you're on.
You're on it
There
now.
you go.
That can happen very quickly.
That'll work.
Thank you, Todd.
Yep.
Let's see here. That is all the public comments I have. Stacy, let's get to budget presentation. Are you ready? Stacy and I are going to tag team this, as we frequently do. And just a couple of comments to set the stage. I'll give my appreciation to the Finance Committee and to Stacy, and for the first time this year, to Andrew. Andrew was deeply involved in the budget process this year as Chief Administrative Officer. And our department heads have participated the way they always have in the past. We could not put these budgets together without understanding what each of our department heads feels that they need to operate their department well. We weren't able to fund everything they asked for, but we do ask them to advocate on behalf of their departments. This is a very tight budget, an austere budget, but I think that's as expected by both our department heads and the council. We had been tracking for months some concerns about the way some of our revenues were going for the current fiscal year, and we had been communicating that with department heads throughout the year, that we knew that this was going to have to be a tight budget. We think that the budget we're getting ready to present to you is necessary for us to manage through the next business cycle or two. We're going to have a rebound with some of our larger revenue line items. Things are already in motion to produce those rebounding revenues, but we have to manage our way through it so we don't get in a bind. The budget that we will show you tonight has no new employees, no new headcount. The budget tonight has no new capital projects.
Got enough of those.
We're continuing the capital projects we have underway, and we'll show you each of those later during this presentation. This budget contains no new taxes or fees. It is very straightforward in that regard. And importantly, this budget does use $1,055,000 of prior year reserve to balance the budget. What we will do is, we'll just walk you through each page of the PowerPoint. And again, what we want council to understand with this budget presentation is what we included in the budget, what we were asked to include in the budget and did not include. So that's the best way for us to show you what all the requests were and what we put in. You'll see on the budget overview, we're going to go through graph after graph and try and look at each of the major line items of revenue for you and expenditures. Under general revenue trends, you can see, well, that's a little hard to see on your all's TV monitor, isn't it? You can see where our general revenue spiked in 2016, immediately prior to the incentive years beginning to kick in. So you'll see on the graph where the next couple of years accounted for the incentive package and that $2.5 million that came out of our general fund revenue. And then it climbed back. We budgeted you can see where we've budgeted for 2019, $26,495,000. Less than what we budgeted for last year. This is a smaller budget than last year's. If we go to occupational license fees, again, you can see where we took our first incentive payment, and then we've been recovering from that pretty nicely up until this year, when we projected $12.8 million in revenue, and we think we're going to achieve closer to 12.5. And you'll notice for 2020, we've actually reduced that expected revenue to $12,500,000. Net profits, we all know what this looks like. It's very spiky and it's unpredictable, and it's really hard to deal with. We had budgeted in your current year's budget, we had mentioned to you that we had budgeted $3.5 billion of net profits revenues, and we've been tracking that shortfall all year long. For the current year, we projected it at $1.8 million. That is no net profits from one large corporate citizen and other net profits that are much more trendable and predictable. And those are the big pieces of our revenue. Under salary and benefits, we have recommended in this budget that all employees receive a 1.9% cost of living adjustment. And we've limited it to the cost of living adjustment. CERS rates, we've included in here a 12% increase, with hazardous being at 39.58% and non-hazardous at 24.06%. You'll be glad to know that our employee contributions for medical, dental, and vision have remained the same. Our medical contributions budget has increased $489,000 due to increased claims over the last couple of years. And And Stacy, unfunded salary adjustments,
These were requested by the departments.
okay.
So
For your all's information, that cost of living increase, the 1.9%, is a cost in the budget of $214,235. So even though it's not a significant percentage increase, it's very expensive. If we go to personnel, again, this budget includes no new personnel. We wanted to show you what was requested, though. Unfunded request included the fire department has asked for, again, this has been several years now, the fire department has asked for an additional assistant fire chief. And the idea this year was to split that in part with code enforcement, since we've aligned that with the fire department now. That probably has some merit. We're simply not in a position to consider it. They asked for 4 additional firefighters. Dispatch asked for 2 dispatchers. Code enforcement has asked for a full-time administrative assistant. Public Works wanted to split a receptionist with the city engineer, and they can justify many of these things. And the cemetery wanted to hire a maintenance worker. We added no head count this year. It's one of those budget years. Under capital expenditures that are funded, we've listed the Lanes Run Business Park, which is got $5 million remaining of that project.
that's as of today. Obviously, we're going to transfer all the money needed for these by the end of this fiscal year. So they're in next year's budget, but they're going to be funded out of this year's budget. We're just going to transfer the money, and it will be sitting in capital projects.
We're proud of the fact that the council funded Lanes Run Business Park and the 911 system out of cash. But we're going to go ahead and run those expenses through our accounting system in this budget year, so they don't affect the following budget year. There's the radio system, East Main Street extended. I'm pleased that we have funded with this budget the entire cost of the estimate of $585,000 for East Main Street extended. This is the project where we have asked for emergency funding, and the Secretary of Transportation has made a request of the Governor's Office for $288,000 of help. We funded all of it without that help, because we know we have to build the road even if we don't get that. The Cardinal Drive is an existing grant. West Main Street will begin that work this spring and summer. We still have the commitment we've made to the South Sewer Line project of $250,000. And then that other $969,000 flows through from
From other government agencies in the KIA.
We also really managed our vehicle replacement request this year. Where we had transitioned to the enterprise lease management program, we were able to get more vehicles than we usually get. But they're not free. They still cost. And we dialed that back some this year because we're dialing back all of the capital expectations. The police department had asked for 14 vehicles. We kept them with 7. Other departments asked for vehicles here and there, and we funded 0. So, Chief, you didn't get all your vehicles, but you got the only ones we're buying. And then we've got a little bit of money in in stormwater projects. We've budgeted $20,000. Now, we've been saying for a long time, it's hard to budget stormwater repairs out of the general fund. Well, this year we're not. I think this is an existing commitment that we made for that curbing along Constitution to help with the flooding, washing down the hill. So that's just keeping a promise that we'd already made. So capital projects are only continuing. Other unfunded ones, we didn't buy Stacy some budgeting analytics software. And if she doesn't get what she wants, don't nobody get what they want. Parks and Recreation, we worked with the county and we funded only $37,000 out of $108,000 they requested. So we took what had to be done only. And in the fire department, these are other things that we did not fund for them that we'll fund just as this improves. But we do want you to see what was requested by your department heads. Public Works, unfunded, a loader, a chipper, a leaf vac, a $200,000 garbage truck. We're not buying the cemetery a mower, and there's all the police vehicles that we cut out, or excuse me, the light-duty vehicles that we cut out of requests made this year. Under other large operating expenditures, our property and liability insurance budgets went up 5%. Interlocal expenses went up only by $49,000. We funded no new community service organizations. We had a lot of requests from community organizations. And we did not increase any organization from what we gave last year. A couple that were really hard not to fund, and the requests were made both to the city and county. The local district judges are very much wanting to start a CASA program locally, the court-appointed social advocates that they've used successfully in other counties. But that was a $20,000 request from the city and $20,000 from the county. It wasn't there this year to start a new program or to fund a program we hadn't funded before. I also want the council to know that our new Commonwealth attorney, Ms. Muse, requested that the city and the county help fund certain positions in their office, which I think everybody's looking for funding and looking for ways to do that. That was not included in either the city's budget or the county's budget. So
Mayor, is the increase in the interlocal, is that salaries?
It's primarily salaries, and we also tried to keep, as much as we could, their capital request down.
Are they given the 1.9 for salary as well? For the county?
They actually gave a minimum of,
I think they
did a
Minimum of 1,050.
minimum of 1,050, and it may have been a 3% raise. And, you know, we've watched the preparation of the budgets on each side of the street. And I'm really proud of the fact that we've given 4 straight years of 3% raises, and those compound real nicely. So I think the council's done exceptionally well with those raises and maintaining some this year. Well, the pie charts. They tell you exactly what we've already done, but they're helpful. It's helpful to see on this chart that 52% of your general fund budget is spent on public safety. We say it's our priority.
It is our priority.
We make it our priority with our budget. And that is police, fire, and dispatch. We could probably include our contribution to ambulance service in there, and that would even be a higher number. Let's see, next largest expenditure is the interlocals, 20%, but we believe there are cost savings there. And only 10% of the budget is spent on administrative, executive, legislative, and clerk. So for all the council functions, all of Ms. Hoffman's functions, all the administration's functions, we do that with less than 10% of the budget. And then expenditures,
Let me go on to the next one.
yeah, there you
Sorry.
go. It's a little bit hard to make much sense out of because the business park fund and capital funds just completely distort the chart. It's probably not the best presentation of the information,
Yeah.
given the way those segments kind of distort the chart. But it gives you some idea of where your other funds are being spent, with the exception of those big departments like police, fire, and public works. The Environmental Services Fund, we just want you to know that we finally depleted,
For the landfill.
pardon?
The landfill fund, yeah.
The landfill fund, we finally depleted that. You'll recall when we negotiated, well, we collected on the outstanding debt for the landfill. And I think we got 2.4, 2.6 million when we collected all of that payment. Thought maybe it'd be a windfall, but it had been expended in 1999, so it meant nothing to us today, except balance some old accounting entries that had been sitting out there. But finally, what limited balance that fund had has now extinguished itself, and recycling expenditures are still split 50-50 with the fiscal court.
Yeah, that one, or- yep.
General fund balance, where we spent $11 million in cash, it shows, doesn't it? Good news is we were able to spend $11 million in cash to do that.
A little left over.
With a little left over. It does mean that once again, we need to start paying attention to this number. I'm comfortable with this projection after 2020, because we've had to use this $1,055,000 to balance this budget. But I think we need to continue to manage ourselves so that as the business cycles improve, this correction.
You're getting awfully close to, with that, taking us back several years. And if anything major was to happen, you would start to get extremely uncomfortable.
You would. The benefit that we have, and we've talked about this quite a bit internally and with some of our financial advisors, because we elected to do the unusual of paying $11 million in cash for things in one given year.
You don't have a debt.
And we did pass the resolution that would later allow us to go back if we needed to finance those projects, to recover cash for operations. We could do that. It's not what we want to do, and we don't think we'll have to do that. But because we paid that much cash, we'd have that option later. It's not a good option. We'll try not to use that one. And then this last slide just shows exactly what use of prior year's revenues have been, including all the comments that I just made. So your budget document has a narrative summary. It has all the funds in detail. It has all the expenditures in detail. But Connie and I were chuckling earlier. You can describe this budget in about 5 or 10 seconds and be accurate. It's a tight budget. There are no new employees. It's a lean budget. There's no new capital, and we're going to manage our way through this. Stacy, any questions for Stacy?
What is the head count? You said No new, what is the current head count?
It's between, I'd say, 195 and 200. I'm not sure the exact number. Megan would have that, but. 204. Oh, okay, you've got it.
204, okay.
That's your job, buddy. Look at him go.
All right. Boom.
Go, Andrew. Give him a button.
So that is not first reading of your ordinance. It's simply the budget being presented to you by the date that the budget ordinance required it to be presented to you. So hopefully take time to look through it. And any questions, Andrew or Stacy or myself would be glad to talk with you about those. Connie and David, from a council perspective, can answer questions for you. And then we hope to have first reading on the 22nd.
One more question, the 214,000 that was for the pay raises, does that number include, the retirement?
Yes.
Okay,
Social
so
Security,
that's-
Medicare, retirement, and
All of it,
disability
all
are
of
all
it.
calculated into that number.
And again, this budget, we took the time in this budget to look at things we haven't done in years past, where you have a $500 budgeted line item, and you see that last year you spent $150. In years past, you just leave that at the amount you budgeted last year. We didn't do that this year. We looked for every penny we could get. We cut every line item where we had not spent the full amount of that line item. We cut it back to what we spent or what we knew we had to spend. We counted hundreds of dollars in this process. We went through every line item looking for those kind of savings. There is no fluff in this budget that I'm aware of.
About $500,000, just going through items like that.
That's good.
So, thank everybody for their work on putting this together. And,
Bless you.
Bless you.
it's intact.
Well, enough of them should have took care of her.
I'm just looking at all this. Is that all we needed to do with the budget presentation, Stacy?
Yeah, unless anybody has any questions, I think you covered most of it. You can look through and see. There were some revenue accounts that did increase, such as insurance premium tax was the biggest, and KU franchise. They went up 300 and 250,000 respectively. And then a couple others that went up 40, 50, 80,000. So we had a little bit, but obviously the having to project our two largest revenue categories lower than what we even anticipated this year is what really drove this budget process and had us looking for the cuts that the mayor spoke of.
That difficult exercise we went through last year about the electric franchise ordinance, it's paying off. We're seeing that with some of those fees as well. Okay, Stacy, let me move on to Parks and Recreation resolution approving grant applications. Is that a land and water grant?
Yes.
Need a motion, Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
Motion.
And second. Thank you. For new council members, these land and water conservation grants for Parks and Recreation are relatively routine. We have the opportunity to submit them. They typically require a 50% match, and we've done some real nice projects with them. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Item 8 on your agenda is a big issue. The good news is we've worked on it for a long time together, and we've been building our understanding of this project. We're now at the point with our South Sewer Line project where we need council resolution for us to go to the Kentucky Infrastructure Authority and ask for the loan that will complete the project. Council's been through this entire process where we proved the low to moderate income within the park, and we became eligible for the 30-year loan at the 0.5% interest rate with some of the loan forgiveness, principal forgiveness. And then we've been working with the owners on how to make that plan a reality. We've done so by addressing the problem within the trailer park and trying to isolate those costs as much as we can so we know exactly what the trailer park improvements are costing. Because all of those improvements will be paid by the owners and through debt service and user agreements. The owner will pay for all of those costs for the infrastructure within the park, the sewer line to a portion of the sewer line, and then beyond that, a privilege fee agreement like any other customer would pay. So we've reached the total of what the owners will pay. We've reached an understanding about all of the resources that government has either acquired or spent. The local government contributions, the grants that we help put together. And we are now ready to go to the KIA board meeting in June and actually seek or make application for the loan. The resolution before you tonight authorizes us to do that. What I want the council to know is this does not obligate you to the loan. This allows us to apply for it. We will come back to you about accepting the loan. And in fact, the loan's not actually accepted, Andrew, until we begin making draws. Is that right?
We won't take any obligating action until after we bid the project and know exactly what it would cost. Only then will we obligate ourselves to pay it.
Okay.
Mayor, I'd like to quickly make a motion for approval of a 0.5% loan.
I'd like to second that motion, Mayor.
And
Can I get one?
we've done the resolution is very detailed about sources of funds and total amount of the project.
Yeah.
And all of these are consistent with the model we've been building for you. The owners have had to come up with some more money. And then the other new item that the owners always had responsibility for decommissioning the old package plants and the lagoon that went with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal. We now have more precise estimates of the cost of decommissioning those two package plants in the lagoon, and it's expensive.
Oh, yeah.
There was an original estimate that somebody floated by us of $250,000.
Triple it.
Try 1.1 million.
Yeah.
So, but the owners are
So
that's
cost
gonna have to be a
attributed
part
100% to the owners.
100% to the owners.
Is that in the financing, or is
Yes.
that them on their own? So that's in,
That will be in on the financing.
that ensures that it gets done, I guess?
Yes. In fact, it makes it relatively easy for them to roll that into this loan package at this point, where if they had to come up with those funds outside of this
Oh,
loan
yeah.
process, it might derail everything.
Well, it also means that we control that process because it will all be part of one big bid package.
Okay.
They are financially responsible for it, but we will be physically responsible for it. We know stuff, right?
Will there be 1 meter to the trailer park?
Yes. We have not retreated from that demand.
So 1 meter covers everything.
We are not gonna ask GMWSS to deal with 400 or 500 customers
Right.
and delinquency issues. We're gonna have one customer and 1 meter.
It's a good idea.
Good.
And
The
we've
parks
worked
have
out,
a plan.
and we've also worked out an arrangement where, we had all kinds of complex arrangements to make sure that the bills got paid. We first talked, David, about a first assignment of rents. I think we're in a stronger position now of them actually bonding the entire amount of indebtedness and the amount of this bill. where we can call the bond to pay the bill. After we're still negotiating what that remedy time would be. You don't want to do it in a month. But once we determine what that remedy time will be, we'll be protected by being able to draw directly on the bond
Good.
to make sure that GMWSS gets their payments.
It's good.
And a third-party collection agent that we must approve of. So that's another level of protection.
How much would they have to bond?
The full amount.
7 to 8 point.
Right, we can pull up there, we can pull up the number sheet
I
of,
was just
Probably
in a range.
about $8 million.
Okay.
more.
Revised every 5 years.
Okay.
Wait a minute, no, because they won't have to bond the cost of the,
got it here.
they wouldn't have to bond the cost of the grant that covers it. That's the total cost of the project. There's about 3.8 million in grant funds. So whatever that difference is what they would bond.
All right.
So we've got a motion and a second, and we have not voted. Why don't we do that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Chase.
Sir.
Let's see, next on your agenda is.
AEA resolution.
Budget gets in the way.
We're just getting started, folks.
Under city attorney, a resolution adopting a reasonable accommodation policy. This is something that legally we're required to have, and it was also a part of a housing settlement that we did some time ago.
It's pretty simple, it just provides a procedure for citizens to submit a grievance if they feel like they've been discriminated against based on disability in receiving services from the city or benefiting from any city programs.
Motion.
Second.
And seconded.
Who said second?
Pardon? Second was Marvin. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
I'm just curious.
Let's see. I think we already did 9B.
Did we?
You want to do it again?
Oh,
Missed that one.
You're funny.
Item 10, code enforcement is a municipal order approving a standing contract for asbestos testing, inspection and testing services. We've got several houses that code's going to have to get into, and we know these issues are involved, and we need a standing contract to be able to draw from.
okay.
Motion.
Thank you. Motion's been made
Second.
and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. That carries. Item 11 on the agenda under city engineer, we're finally to the stage of submitting our build grant again.
Yeah.
And I asked Eddie to sit through this long council meeting tonight so that
It was
if we have any
interesting.
He had nothing
questions
to do.
about the build grant. Eddie, you're looking at a July submission.
Yes, it's the end of July, and it's for the same roads, Lexus Way Extended, Old Oxford, and Connector Road. And,
We're Eddie and Andrew and others have really done the homework of having our old application evaluated and getting feedback on where we could have made it better.
yeah.
And what points that we didn't emphasize that we need to emphasize if we're gonna score better. So we've gotten that feedback and taken it to heart. So it's essentially the same application, but completely retooled in the way we present stuff. We still anticipate, even with our tight budget, that we would submit this grant with a 25% match. And we are going into this tonight, and we're asking you to vote on this application on an assumption that the county will be our partner
Okay.
on that 25% match. They have not voted on that yet, but they did make that commitment to our prior build grant, and I think we can assume with that assumption tonight.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
And seconded?
Do we know
do we have a rough idea, once this is submitted, when we'll get an answer back, whether or not we?
Last year was in December.
Yeah.
It'd be 6 months.
Pretty quick
Yeah.
turnaround
Okay.
for a grant of this size.
Point of clarification is, this municipal order is just to hire Bell to help us with the
Grant.
grant application, correct?
Yes.
So
it's-
we'll actually come back with a resolution as well, before we
Okay, so I
apply.
get the cart before the horse. That's why you're sitting over there to keep me straight.
Well, I just wanted to clarify, because we will bring a resolution, and so by that time, hopefully we'll have conferred with, Judge and everybody about it. So this is the contract to work with Bell Engineering, who put together our last application, and who was party to the conversation with, the folks who evaluate them, and we got, like, as the mayor said, we got great feedback, so this is
Yeah.
just to hire Bell to help us with the application again.
That's
Thank you for
correct.
that clarification.
Sorry,
Yeah. Thanks.
didn't mean to interrupt the vote.
Well, now that we know what we're voting on.
That's
Always
better.
good. Always helps.
I know it's $15,000.
The answer is yes, no.
Did we have a motion and a second?
Yes.
Sorry.
Well, now do we understand what the motion and second are
Yes.
about? I'm glad. Thank you for your patience. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Also, Eddie has brought us a municipal order approving a contract with Leak Eliminators. This moves us forward with some of our evaluation of our current stormwater system. This is bringing in cameras and being able to look at some of the stormwater piping and clean some of them out so they'll work like they're supposed to. Scope, the area primarily for this is going to be downtown Georgetown College area where our oldest storm sewers are right now.
Yeah. This is part of a contract that the city took 3 years ago. It was a 3-year contract, and this is a continuation of that for this fiscal year.
Sounds good. Is there a motion for approval?
I'll make a motion.
Motion made and seconded.
Karen?
And if there are no questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And then Eddie's brought us something that was in the office, I think, when Kyle was still here.
It was, yeah.
Council's been complaining about dark sections of town. And this will add some
Light to the subject.
light to the subject, thank you. Particularly on Delaplain Road where we
Yeah, it's
have a
rough out
pretty dark stretch.
Mayor, can I ask one quick question though, relating, because it is streetlight additions, right? That's what we're gonna be doing?
Yes.
Will it
12
be the
streetlight.
same as what they did on Old Oxford, or will this, what are the
Yeah, it'll be the
specs?
same, the standard wood poles and
Yeah.
the cobra heads. It's
What-
not as visible an area as you're talking about.
Yeah, and will they be placing them, literally 2 feet from the edge of the asphalt, or is there
Yeah.
a engineering plan to go along with this?
Yeah, we haven't got to the point where we've actually spotted the exact location of the poles. I'll be looking at that real soon and can report back to you.
Okay,
They typically like to put them at the very edge of the right of way.
yeah,
I know we missed, a few
yeah,
spots.
yeah.
They're not pretty.
No, if you want to upgrade to something,
Decorative.
it's more, just, the cost goes up.
I understand,
Okay.
I do.
The light's a light, though, right now.
Well, I know, but
Well, the standard is just a wood pole.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the base model, if you will. And then you can go to any number of other options.
So where are these exactly? They're on Delaplain, but that was just,
Delaplain and Anderson.
yeah.
Yeah, I've got a map I could send you that would show.
I don't want to hold anything up. I mean, obviously, it's been around for quite some time. I mean, is a couple weeks, is that going to kill
No.
anything?
Not at all.
I don't want to make, I'm not, obviously, we just had some
Understand.
issues with the last one. I wouldn't mind taking a
Understand.
quick look at it.
I'd like to see that as well.
Why don't you send that
Sure.
out?
Sure,
Council.
yeah, I'd be happy to.
Yeah, if this were at Rocky Creek or any other, any neighborhood, I shouldn't even say Rocky Creek,
Mhm.
I wouldn't be real thrilled about it. I'd be saying, hey, we definitely need to upgrade. We need to match
Metal
what the
poles,
neighborhood
Okay.
has.
breakaways.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what I'll do is we have a kind of a layout
Yeah.
of where they're gonna, and then the electrical company, they look at that and then
Okay.
they have their engineers,
Okay.
do their thing and.
Do we
Yeah, I can-
possibly anticipate additional lighting at some point, maybe either this year or as we move into 2020?
Yes.
In some of the other areas we've talked about?
Because this isn't the only, I mean, when this popped up on the agenda, I said, we've got other dark places that the
We do.
council's been talking about, so.
Yeah.
The other
It is
active.
not meant to be exclusive. It just finally came out of the pipeline.
Where we did the ones on Oxford, looking at it now, what I would say personally would be, maybe we don't do as many. We do a few
Okay.
at the intersection, but we do the more appropriate lights versus so many down through there,
Okay, I've got some maps I can send out,
if we have a budget,
yeah,
and we almost always do, so.
Yeah.
yeah,
We'll hold that
okay, yeah,
and get a little more information.
okay,
I know it's 12, right?
yes, sir.
Yeah.
It's not that expensive, right? I mean, 15,000, is that?
No, it's relatively inexpensive and.
But
and-
that, even at the shorter length that Delaplain is now, that's still not going to light up that road a whole lot. But, definitely at the intersections of the subdivisions out there in Anderson Road and, that section of the business park there, that would definitely be a shot in the arm for them.
Okay, more information to come.
All right.
Item 12 on your agenda, Stacy's back at the podium. She's got a municipal order approving a couple of budget transfers where we're moving things within departments, but they exceed the limit that we can do without your all's approval.
Yes, PD had some building repairs, I think some HVAC repairs that exceeded their expectations for the year. So they've requested to move some money. And then sanitation had needed to buy an additional round of Herbies. We've bid those out, but this will help cover that additional round that we didn't plan for in the initial budget. And then they've had some vehicle maintenance repairs that came in higher than expected. They had money left over in the account where they purchased a garbage truck, so they're just moving from one to the other.
Thank you. Motion? Motion's been made and seconded to approve the budget transfers. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We've also got a municipal order approving our auditor.
Yes, we did request for proposals. This is for a 3-year contract. We received one response, but of course, we do all of our proposals online now, but we had a lot of downloads and people looking at it. But one response from our current auditor at $27,500 per year. They're our current auditor and GMWSS's current auditor. We've been pleased with their service and so recommending.
Motion, Mayor.
Thank you.
I'll second.
And seconded. If there are no questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see, Stacy, I think you can almost go home now. I'm not sure. You and Eddie can go home now.
Not yet. We got a question for you.
Let's see, item 13 on your agenda, the fire department has a municipal order approving surplus items.
Motion, Mayor.
Motion's been made
Second.
and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. They got it right. Item 14 on your agenda, under Police Department, we have a municipal order approving a contract with Tyler Technologies. This is the situation that Andrew updated you on a couple of weeks ago. Tyler Technologies is our new world system in dispatch.
Yep.
And we had been given a new maintenance contract that we thought was excessively high. And you all gave us the tools that we needed to send Andrew back to renegotiate that. And congratulations. Andrew, you want to tell them what you wrote out?
The original proposal was somewhere in the neighborhood of $120,000 just a year, just for maintenance, and We told them that was frankly too high and that we were considering bidding it out. So after a while, some back and forth, they came back with a proposal that is overall under $100,000 and includes an upgrade, the enterprise upgrade, which would have cost itself $100,000. They've essentially rolled that in to financing and greatly reduced the maintenance. We're pleased with where they are. We are still trying to work out a legal detail, which is when they will finish, when they will start and or finish the upgrade. I'm hopeful that we get there, but you have our commitment that we won't approve that contract until we're satisfied that they're gonna get it done within a reasonable period of time, which we feel, given how long it takes to do the upgrade, should be no more than 14, 16 months. It is a long process.
I'll make a motion, Mayor.
Thank you.
I'll second.
And seconded. If there are no questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. That passes. Also, under Police Department, a municipal order approving surplus items.
Motion. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded.
Moving right along.
That's right.
I'm not along with it.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
It's, you know, you hit that 3-hour mark and things get
Here's the
quicker,
celebrate,
don't
right?
they? It's human nature. That's what happens. Thank goodness. Under Public Works, there's the municipal order approving the purchase of the Herbies that we just transferred the money to buy.
Motion.
Second.
And a second. Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And Robert has gone through the reverse auction for salt, and we have a contract for salt for the coming year.
What'd you do with last year's salt? We didn't have to use much of it.
I know.
A little different this year.
It melted.
We gotta buy 70% this year of the salt instead of we bought 400 ton last year. We'll have to buy only 840 ton this year. So we got room for it.
Okay.
That should be.
I can't believe we're talking about salt already.
I'm
Motion.
Nay.
Second.
Second.
Let's
All
hope
in-
you don't have to use it.
I hope so.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Robert's got our back, because if we hadn't gotten the contract and we had gotten into a really tough
It would
winter,
have cost us.
he'd been out on the open market
Oh, yeah.
without benefit of a contract.
What would it cost then, Robert? We talked about that. Yeah,
Higher than it's been.
yeah,
So $86 a ton, that's,
cheap.
No, we did that.
that's high.
Y'all ready to go
A lot
to
of
the
people
pub?
that didn't go.
We bought the Herbies and we bought the salt.
Last year, they paid $100.
Just making sure.
Ready to go to the pub?
That's everything.
We're at the portion, pardon?
Chapter 9.
Yeah, it is. Let's see, Todd? Council comment?
This Saturday, couple things going on. One is the Greater Boston Revitalization Project. They will be working at the Old Georgetown Cemetery on Saturday morning from 8 till noon. And then Saturday night, the FFA alumni will be having a fundraiser. Speaking of the noise ordinance, this kind of fits in great because we will be having our annual spring truck and tractor pull. So lots of noise going on around Georgetown.
You talk about hearing it. I hear that on my back deck on Broadway.
I live on the south side of Georgetown and I can hear it from my house. So,
Thank you, Todd. Holly?
No, nothing.
Marvin?
No, sir.
David?
No, s-
Go ahead.
I
Karen?
got a few things.
All
right.
Not too long. One is at the police department. The bus that goes around town.
G-Train.
Yes, which is very nice. They say they have a hard time coming out of the corner of Chambers and then turning on to Bourbon Street because there's police cars parked on both sides, and they have a hard time swinging that, and that's part of their route. So I told my
Chief.
So, and then, Canewood area out here on 460, where the marathon happen to go. There's a lot of potential accidents going on out there, or about to have accidents, and one of the residents that live out there was talking to me about, putting a light. Told we couldn't do that, told we weren't in charge of the speed limit there. but it's 55 through there, and I told her maybe the council could make a resolution asking for the state to pull it down to 45, because like in front of Pierce Pike out up where we are, it changes to 45, and out there, they said it's still 55, so,
If we make the request via resolution, they might do a traffic count
okay,
and actually do it.
yeah, so
Is that a motion?
I would, yes.
Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And we'll make that request to District 7.
Okay.
Via a resolution of the council.
I figured that it would be. And then over on Bourbon Street and Popular, Bourbon, Hamilton, Popular, over through there, it said coming around that curve, I guess that's actually Gano and onto, Popular, that they're coming really fast around that curve and that it's a danger over there. So the lady that lived there would just ask for the police to maybe take a look at that. And then one last thing for Public Works is 107 Penn Street. Behind, we've had this issue before, behind where the railroad tracks on Hamilton Street, used to be the old railroad. Yeah, there's a dip that goes down in there, and where the triangle's mowed. He says that is not his right of way that's down in there, and there's a dip that's going there, and the weeds are high in that. If you could look at that and see if that's ours. And then somebody requested that the council members have their addresses on the internet. And we've got our phone numbers and our emails, but if we could put our addresses on there too, to send us letters.
We can do that.
Sure can.
Okay. All right, that's it.
Thanks. Mark?
I move.
No.
Tammy?
I would just want to say one thing. This was a difficult situation tonight, and it was a pleasure to go through it with you people. You know, everybody's so respectful, and we're all sort of in this as a team, and I really appreciate working with people like that.
Tough decisions sometimes, I'm telling you, they are.
So
We just
that's
take it out back when we're done. No, I'm kidding.
Come on, Tom, let's go.
If there's nothing else coming before the council, we will stand adjourned.
Adjourn.
Praise the Lord. Get out of here. I know, you're right, Ken.